And now, the moment you have all been waiting for. As we go ahead and we start talking some shh IT with Glenn and Tony.
That was the loudest shh I've ever heard.
Be very, very quiet. We're hunting knowledge.
Shh.
Shh.
It.
Shh. Shh.
Don't forget the it.
It. It.
That's what I was
That's it.
saying after their picks, man. They threw me off tonight. I
Yeah.
was sure it was going to be either outfield or flock of seagulls.
Mm-hmm. They're good choices. I mean, there are a
Aha.
lot of good one-hit wonders out there. Even at the end when they were mentioning all the ones
Although
that didn't make the list.
I know, like I actually want to see them do a second show with all the leftovers because some of those were great picks.
Absolutely. Lots of good stuff. We'll see what they have in store for us next week as well. But for now, we had the one-hit wonders from the 80s. Now, we were talking earlier in the week about,
Yeah, it was a good episode.
I want to say it was Reverb Nation. Is that the one we talked about for the new blog post that we saw on BandLab? They're talking about being able to do
Yeah,
reviews
yeah.
of your
BandLab's got a
songs.
new.
So we're going to take a look at that real quick. I'm not sure if everybody saw that or not, so let's just share it up real quick. It was a blog post from BandLab, and it
Yeah, I'm not
mentions
sure if
going
a
to.
lot of people even know
Mhm.
that like blog.bandlab.com is out there.
Mhm.
They don't advertise it, and it took me like 8 months before I found that webpage.
Right. And this one, this is just anytime I see one of the, whether it's a contest announcement or anything that they post in the main feeds, and I just want to come back and check it out later, I'll come back and look here
Ooh,
and get to it.
looper.
Oh, got some volume coming in. Let me get that squared away there. All right, should be
Ooh,
okay
looper. Looper. I'm
there.
gonna try and Ange.
There you go. Try to make a song out of the loop. The main one was this one here, the crowd review. Get your music rated before release, and that was bringing it into Reverb Nation. It talks down here about getting everything, getting feedback on your music with crowd review. And right down on the right side of a song page, you'll see a button now for get reviews. And this way, they'll be able to send it over to get you from. You can either create, if you have a Reverb Nation account, you can link to that. If you don't, it'll create one for you. But this would be, to me, a good way of getting your music in front of other people, getting their ears on it, so they can see, get more feedback on it before you actually release something. So they have a form right here for filling it out. It has to be a 90-second song at least in order to submit it for that. But and again, I haven't tried this yet. But this is something that we saw recently that would be interesting to check out. So just thought we would mention that real
Oh,
quick.
I want to try this.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I like the direction they're going with this.
Mm-hmm. Good integration with a whole setup community that's already there. Like I have a Reverb account that I haven't looked at in 5 years. I probably set it up 10 years ago. I should look back into it again, but this is a perfect reason to go back in and look at it again and get back started in that.
Yeah,
Good, what
and
else that looks.
these are platforms that complement each other.
Mm-hmm.
These are platforms
Absolutely.
that complement each other. Oh, I'm still getting a loop.
Are you? Is that like real quiet in the background,
Yes.
or is it pretty
I don't
pronounced?
know if anybody can verify over on the stream if they hear two.
It is
I'm hearing it
definitely
over
you,
here.
Glenn.
Ah, it's me, huh? All right.
It is definitely you,
That could well be. Let's see. Yeah. All right. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Talk amongst yourself, Tony. All right. Give me 1 second.
I'm talking to myself. It's kind of like talking to Ange.
And now I'm back. Question is the double gone?
Sounds like it. Yep.
Excellent.
No.
All right. Sorry about that.
Hard to tell.
I think it's gone, as far as I can tell. So, anyway, back to the crowd review here. This is just something that we're going to look at later to be able to submit things for Reverb Nation. Again, they'll create an account for you if you don't have one yet. It says right here, continue with BandLab, and they'll create one for you if you don't already have your Reverb Nation account. But if you do, this will get it in front of people. There was also a community on BandLab itself for new music coming out that you can put songs in front of people as well, to get people to see the songs. And it's kind of like the people who come to, say, hey, check out my track and all this, but it's basically a whole community of them that are, all looking at all the tracks for everybody. We'll get the name of that community for you again later. That was one that I found not too long ago, and I joined into. In the meantime, though, with the blog posts here, we also had some things that we were going to look at from some of the other guys. Did you want to look at Tim or Paul or Jake first? Any?
What do we
option?
got?
We have, I think you're going to probably pick Jake, but we'll see here. With Tim, we have one on Reckless Abandon, just going at it for song solos and all that. For Paul Davids, we have the magic of slash chords, adding stuff to adding bass notes underneath chords to get more interesting bass progressions or bass movement in songs. And writing prog metal gent with Lydian Dominant, a composition lesson.
Oh, is he talking about slash like Guns N' Roses slash? Or
Nope.
is he talking
Slash chord is like a C
an
over
actual
G.
chord type?
It's a C over G, for example, which would be a C chord, but with a G note as the lowest note that you're hitting. So they would write it as C/G, but that just means that it's a C chord, but it's in an inversion where the G is the lowest note that you're hearing. So that it's usually used for bass movement. So in a chord progression, you might hear the bass doing doom, 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 even though the chords are doing something different. And that's just using slash chords, technically is what it would be called if you were just doing, that one different inversion to get that bass note movement happening the way that you want it to for a song. But let's start with...
So that's what they call it.
Let's start with that one then. We'll start with Paul Davids and slash chords.
5 ways how slash chords can
Fixing
turn
your
everyday
boring chord progressions.
into something more spicy like. But also so much more. Anyway, slash chords, compound chords, chords with different bass notes. Please don't make a joke about slash. Today I'm spilling all my secrets and I'm showing you 5 awesome ways how we can use these slash chords to turn your everyday basic chord progressions into something a little more spicy. We did the same in 2 other videos about secondary dominance and the diminished chord, and I turned those into a playlist titled Fixing Your Boring Chord Progressions. You can check it out over here. Anyway, so I don't want to make this video about music theory too much, but more the practical implications of using these slash chords. But I just have to explain it a little bit. I'm sure we've all seen this. A G chord followed by a slash and then a B, for example. This doesn't mean you can pick either one or you have to cross one off. No, it's called G over B. It means we play a G major chord over the B bass note. So you have to see it like that, over a bass note. And the G major chord, well, if there's nothing else indicated, we play the G as the lowest sounding note. Just like how anyone would play a G major chord if you see nothing else indicated. But if you see G/B, it means the B has to be the lowest note. So now it's the G. But then we have to turn it into a B. The B is fret 2 on the A string, so we just omit the 6th string and then we create G over B. And probably that's the most seen way to play a different bass note that's already in the chord. You can also play a G over D, for example, if you just omit the A and the E string. So if you put a note from the chord itself as a bass note, that is called an inversion, and that's probably the most seen ways. But you can really put any note in the bass note. For example, a G over A, we just play the A. Or a G over C, or a G over F sharp. And ladies and gentlemen, there we have it, slash chords. So now how would we use them in a musical way? So this is method number 1. Let's say we play a progression C, G, A minor. Very common progression. So what I would do, like instantly, is play C, G over B, A minor. And I would play this because we create a descending bass line in this chord progression. From C, going to B, going to A. Sort of linking the chords more together. So instead of da, 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 we play. So we're just substituting
Oh, that does provide nice
or
bass.
G over B, and it doesn't sound that different because we don't alter the chord structure. It's still the same 3 notes of the G major chord, but then just play it with a different bass note. Sounds great. Anyway, this is method number 1. So descending bass line, keep that in mind. Here's method number 2. So another great way of using these slash chords is to create tension by just adding a different bass note to your chord. For example, when you play A minor chord. Now I'm just adding a G to the A minor chord. So you play A minor, and then we play A minor over G. So I'm adding my pinky to the 6th string. So now we create so much more tension than we would do when we play A minor and G. This happens in the song While My Guitar Gently Weeps by the Beatles. And if we look at the chord progression, we see that the next chord is a very strange chord, F sharp minor 7 flat 5. And if I remember correctly, we play that chord like F sharp minor 7 minor 3rd.
Oh, I've been loving this chord.
Wait a second.
It's a good one.
That's just A minor over F sharp. That makes way more sense, right? Just notating it A minor over F sharp. Okay, and the 4th chord is going to be an F major. I know the F major 7th. Let's play it like this. Okay, wait a second. That's again just A minor over F. So now we see that there's always so many ways of notating just one chord, and it's all just of how you see the chord progression. For me, it makes more sense to notate this chord progression like A minor over G, A minor over F sharp, A minor over F. Or maybe the last one I would notate as F major 7th because it's very common. But now you just see very easily that the chord stays the same on top. Sounds so good. And the last part from G to F is actually a chromatic descending bass line. Chromatic meaning we don't skip a fret. It contains all the notes. So it's G, F sharp, F. And remember that chromatic bass line because the same happens in this very cool chord progression.
Takes almost no hand movement.
This is the 3rd way of using it, and we see it a lot in blues music. So we start off on an A minor chord over here, fret 7 on the D string. I'm just barring my index finger all across the 5th fret on the 3rd, 2nd, and 1st string. And now I'm just chromatically lowering the bass note from A to G sharp to G to F sharp, and then we land on the F major 7th chord.
If you struggle to get better on guitar, then what I'm about to say will probably frustrate you. You don't have...
And then you can play G and then A minor again. So this is called a line cliche as well, where you basically hover on a static or stationary chord and just one note is changing up or down. So we can also call this A minor major 7th, A minor 7th, and A minor 6. It's very beautiful, and you can also lower the highest note. Just love that bluesy, melancholic. It is very beautiful, and this happens in quite a few songs. So what if we would raise the highest voice to And then again. Don't want any copyright strikes. Okay, so now we go to a very awesome chord progression, and now we have an ascending bass line. So let's play the C major chord. Let's say we're in the key of C, and then we play the F chord, typical fourth chord degree, like C, F, 1, 4, and then we go to a D chord. So this is actually very close connected to the secondary dominant video. So really make sure you've checked that one out, because we're linking all of these things we know together in this chord progression. C to F. And now we go to D chord. But it would be very cool if we could link the D chord some way to the F major chord, because it sounds a little bit too jumpy for me. So we're gonna play an inversion of the D chord. So we see that the F sharp is a note that is in the D major chord. So what if we put that note as lowest note, as the bass note? Like so. So we've got F major, D over F sharp, beautiful. And then we go to the G major chord. That is very close connected, D to G. See, there's just a half steps jump in the bass line. And now we go to the E major chord. There's again a big jump. I don't like that. I want the chords to be connected. So what if you put the major third of the E major, which is the G sharp, and we play E over G sharp. And I like this voicing, you can play it like this. I'm not going over all the fingerings, but you can see the chord boxes in the screen, so please don't complain. So E over G sharp like this, and now we created a nice ascending bass line from F to D over F sharp, to G, to E over G sharp, and then we can even play A minor. So we have F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A in total. So this can be played in the song Wish You a Merry Christmas. F, D over F sharp, G, C. Anyway, just a little jump ahead in time to Christmas. It's coming. Okay, so that's method number 4, creating an ascending bass line. And now my favorite one, the 5th way, and we have 2 progressions. First, let's start with the basic one. It's from a song we all know. So instead of playing play. So what I love to do is to play A major. Then we play a G and E over G sharp again. So the bass line is going from A to G sharp. So we connect the chords again with the bass lines. A to G sharp, E over G sharp, G to D, but then again D over F sharp. So again, chromatically descending bass line. A, G sharp, G, F sharp. And now we go to D minor. So we go from D major over F sharp to D minor. So it would only be logical if we would switch the F sharp to an F in the D minor chord, right? Because now it's again an inversion. So a D minor has the F note in it. So first inversion. Now to the A chord. So an A chord contains the E note, so we can have the E note as the bass note. song ends with B7, E7, sus4, basically an A. Let's continue to my favorite chord progression. So I hope this all makes sense. I'm going too fast, I'm sorry, but we need to cover a lot of ground, so we're just keeping the pace a little bit higher. So this chord progression we're taking a look at now sort of evolved in the video about secondary dominance. So really check it out over here. We created this chord progression just going from C, A minor, G, and F, I believe, to a very nice chord progression sounding like this. C, E7, A minor, C7, F, C, D7, G7, and C. So that's the chord progression we created in that video. But now we're gonna do something very cool with this chord progression. We're going to play a descending bass line using these chords. So the first one is the C chord, C major, that's the key we're in. We're going to the secondary dominant of the A minor chord, the E7th, but we're playing the B as a bass note. So C, E7th over B, and then to A minor. And then we go to C7th, which is the secondary dominant of F. But we keep the descending bass line going. C, B, A, to G, because that's in the scale, the next note. So we play C7th over G. And I like this voicing. It's a little bit modest. Just a cool voicing. So 4 chords in total. And then we go to the F chord. We don't have to change that because it's just in the line of the descending notes. And then we go to C major. Well, if we go down from F, we have the E, and E is the major third in C. So that makes a lot of sense. C over E. And then we really need to continue to D, D7th. So you can see it as lowering C, D, E, G, F, E, D. But we don't have the low D, but we just, you know, we hear it like that. And then we play the G7th as a sort of final resolution to the C again. So in total it becomes
7th wants resolution.
beautiful. It's really cool and you can get so many interesting sounds from just changing up the bass notes. So really experiment with it. If this video goes a little bit too fast maybe for you, I really suggest checking out my courses, Learn, Practice, Play at Next Level Playing, where we go way more thoroughly and in depth into these chords and also slash chords, but also a lot of different techniques we use to make cool music. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate everyone coming to the channel every time.
Yep, and that is for the other one for the secondary dominance is also very good. This is from Paul David's site, so this is his YouTube channel here. Just tons of good stuff there.
And it turns out I'm using slash chords and I didn't even know it.
Yep, exactly. Most people are. Yeah, it's just the way that the bass movement happens as you're doing chords, and it's a kind of a song arranging thing as to how you utilize them more thoroughly. Very cool.
Some of the examples he gave there are, for me, very natural on the piano.
Yeah, and those are ones that we use a lot. Some of them just just by feel, like you said, like it feels like the progression instead of bouncing from here to here to here to here, like you just have it, kind of moving, whether it's ascending or descending, but you get something coherent happening with the bass, whether it's going up or down or staying in the same place. But it's not at the whim of the chords. You can just have it do its own thing and control it that way. Very
Wow,
cool.
he's got 2.71 million subscribers.
Yes, he does.
Go, Paul.
Definitely a ton of people following. Another one that I like is Tim Pierce.
Well,
We looked at before.
he really he goes into some of that more, like advanced theory.
Oh yeah. And some of them where he goes into things like 10 riffs that taught him how to play guitar, epic riffs, why are they so difficult? Why is this so difficult to play? Why is that so difficult to play? And you can really break down some of these songs as well as just things about gear and things. Like over here, it's about finding the right guitar bodies for acoustic guitar sizes and
Oh,
just all kinds of
interesting.
things. Yeah, that one. I
We've
mean,
had discussions about guitar bodies.
yeah. And I didn't honestly realize that there were that many different classifications, even, from the Dreadnought to the OM to the this, all the different styles. I know that there are differences, but you can just see the differences in the way they're cut away, whether they're rounded, whether they have, a single cutaway, double cutaway, a rounded back, angled sides, all that kind of stuff. All those factors, play into the style of the actual acoustic. So there's just, there could be any number of them that would feel good or would feel better than one another based on your body, size and style and the shape and style of the guitar.
Yeah, and
So
I
it's
love
important to try
that
'em out.
there's YouTube. I love that there's YouTubers out there like studying it and the sound differences, because
Yeah.
the guitar shape will change the sound.
Another good one right
The
there.
guitar would.
200 euro guitars any good? So he was going for cheap guitars and trying to see how they work. So just trying the stuff that the average person who could go to a guitar store and get an instrument like that without too much difficulty. Whereas not everybody can go out and get a Les Paul custom shop. It's a little bit harder to get the iconic guitars, but just getting something and just trying to play it and see what you can make of it. And that's where a lot of times the videos will be on how to do a setup, how to change certain things that are minor tweaks that you can do to really improve the playability of a cheap guitar. Because a lot of times out of the box they're not set up very well, and they might need certain bits of love to get them into a much better playing state. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
any cheap guitar can
even
be
an
fine.
expensive guitar might not be ready to
Exactly.
go out the
Exactly.
box.
And that's where a lot of times, if you are buying a more expensive guitar, a lot of times there'll be a better setup done before you get it, but it's not a guarantee. So, I mean, anytime you get it, like one giveaway for me, or is like if you look at it and you see that all of the saddles or all the bridges is like straight across there, where there's nobody set the intonation, nobody looked at each string to make sure that the E is right at the octave and it's right at the open and everything else. It can make such a big difference to the playability of a guitar. When you're getting the right notes that you're expecting hitting the strings, because it's so frustrating if you're hitting things and you're hitting the right notes but they don't sound right because the intonation of the guitar is off. So that's one of the places that stringed instruments can get a little bit crazy, but it's one of those important things about tuning up and making sure that your intonation is good and just checking if it's in tune open, make sure it's in tune at the 12th fret, and that'll give you a quick check of the intonation. They should be the same, but if they're even a little bit different, they can really throw you off when you're trying to do chords up high or do high solo notes.
Yeah, when I got to meet Jeff Beck, he was talking about that, and like the sound of the tuning at the middle and all the way open,
Definitely different.
and getting them calibrated.
Yep. And making sure it sounds good all the way up to the very high end of the neck where the frets are very close together, and all the way at the far end of the neck where everything's farther apart. It all factors in. Another one we were going to do was from Tim Pierce. We've looked at some of his videos before as well. The one we were going to look at this time was this first one here. So many guitarists ignore this one thing: reckless abandon.
Oh,
So we're going to check that out.
there we go.
But in the meantime, just looking through some of the stuff that he has on his page here. He's got things about mix breakdowns and guitar lessons on specific songs or particular styles, whether it's the Rolling Stones or the Beatles or blues solos. He's got rock lessons, R&B lessons, gigs, recordings, guest guitarists that come on his show. There's all kinds of good stuff there as well. But let's jump right into
Device studio harmony.
Yep, and he played with Meatloaf. I mean, this is Tim Pierce. He's a studio musician, and he's done just ridiculous numbers of albums that he's been on. So, like, anytime if you're looking for a studio guitar guy, like he's a good guy to listen to see what all he's working on and how he does
And
approach these things.
he's compared the like expensive gear versus the cheap gear as well.
Yep, doing some of the stuff that's the stuff that you can get easily versus the stuff that is the real boutique shop stuff. But I mean, he has access to all of the great stuff because he has just he's played with so many great artists that he has access to
He's
just
lucky.
great equipment that he has developed, that he's accumulated over the years and uses just very well. And I love the fact that he's just always got such a huge smile on his face when he's playing because he's just enjoying himself so much with everything he's doing there. So let's try this one here. This is so many guitarists ignore this one thing. Get myself over there. There we go. And make
Guitarist ignoring something? Get out of here.
Could you imagine? Is that even possible? Let me kick this in here.
So this is song number 2 by Blur. It was a huge hit for them. I loved this song. I heard it in a lot of commercials, a lot of movies and TV. I think it was a licensing monster for these guys. I listened to a great interview with Graham Coxon on Warren Hewitt's channel where he talks about the guitar sound in the verse, this.
And I really wanted a clangy crap guitar sound, you know, like
So what's
a crap, clean, clangy, kind of not played particularly well.
and what was it?
Probably Telly.
So this is my Michael Tuttle Telly, and I have proudly reliced it myself. This is use. I've used this guitar so much.
Is
I've
that like the
actually
garage
reliced it.
sound?
I'm using
Or
it. I'm kind of proud of that. The Telly is a great guitar, but one of the things that really makes it great is there's not that many guitars that have the strings going through the back of the body straight into the wood. That's one thing. And then the actual assembly, the bridge, the tailpiece, and the pickup
they're
mount are
extremely
all on one unit.
modifiable.
So this pickup is mounted to this mass of metal. And then these old school, bridge pieces, they actually sound great. And Michael, he's pretty smart, man. He does brass on these two and aluminum on this one. And they're compensated, so you get better intonation. That's great, too. Really good DiMarzio pickups. This is an Area 7, and that's called the 36th anniversary. They sound really good. Moving down here to the capo. For reckless abandon, playing in the key of F minor and A flat major, a capo is totally necessary because you want to be able to bump the strings and have them be part of the music. I talk a little more about that later. But yeah, this guitar is awesome. So the goal here was for it
Oh,
to
and how often do you hear a capo is necessary?
and this song, they actually made it kind of as a joke, played it for the record company thinking they would horrify the record company, and the record company loved the song, and kind of the rest is history.
I was like, this is quite good. Let's do it really, really fast, really, really noisy and horrible. And tell the record label that we want to record it as a single. That'll scare them to death. They'll hate it. And so that's what we did. And they came in and we played it to them, giggling. They were like, wow, this is excellent. So our joke was foiled.
I love the song, and it's really a great example of the soft, loud device. Now, Nirvana did this on Smells Like Teen Spirit. You do one part really soft, and then the same thing explodes a few seconds later. It's very effective, and then the verse goes down to soft again. This has that device, and it works. So if I'm playing rock in the key of F, and it's F minor, F pentatonic minor, I'm going to put a capo on because I want the open strings to work for me. I want drone. I want to be able to hit harmonics. I want to be able to slam chords and have open strings adjacent to them. I want to be able to make mistakes and have the mistakes be in tune. I mean, just going like this works if you're, on a song like this and you have a capo on the guitar. So let me just jump in and show you what I mean. I mean, I always got a lot of the work I got because I could combine the skills, shall we say, of a polished studio player with the intent and the enthusiasm of a teenager. And so I've kind of always been able to fill that role where I can just kind of go with reckless abandon. And the capo allows me to do this. It's really, really important. Would not do it
And
without
that's
it.
probably why he's smiling all the time when he plays.
The ability to just
Play stuff like that.
and have it work
Yeah,
in
it's
the
like being
movie
young again.
is really important. So this guitar part is great. It needs nothing else. But my job has always been to come up with other parts, other colors. And I encourage you to think like this because there's so much you can do on every song. And as an ensemble player, when you're out there playing with musicians, the idea is to think of cool parts to play. So I came up with something to add to the verse, two parts actually. They bounce off of each other. Let's dive in.
And I like thinking of it like colors.
So to me, I mean, a different band, if it was my band, would have had that part also, in addition to the cool, simple, original part. So I really love sophisticated music, but I also love super simple music. And certainly I love rock. Sometimes the simplest guitar riffs are the most fun to play. And Graham Coxon, I mean, he tried to create something that sounded
Are the
clangy,
most easiest for listeners to
well, it was
connect
really kind
to
of brilliant.
sometimes.
And the
That's one of the big ones,
juxtaposition
yeah.
of that really clangy,
Yeah.
crappy part against the huge, distorted monster chorus really made the song amazing. So it's super fun to play. I mean, very simple guitar parts are often the most satisfying things to play, I think. And here's some news. We just debuted a beginner course in the masterclass. It's got 80 videos. We're going to keep adding to it. So when you combine that with the near beginner course and then the 12 intermediate categories, I feel like we have something for everybody. So if you want to try some guitar lessons, click the link below and take the 14-day free trial. You can always opt out if it's not right for you.
Good stuff. And again, that was from Tim Pierce Guitar. Tons of good stuff on his channel there.
And he's
again,
covering all
always great
grounds
attitude.
there.
Yep. Covering the beginning.
Yeah, I like
12
how
levels of intermediate. That's crazy.
well, actually, that makes sense. You know, starting to walk 12 steps. I like how he mentioned, you know, thinking of it in colors and when you're adding layers, and his variation on that was more of a build-up. Like the way the parts he added just took that initial chord structure and every couple of measures added a little more build-up until it reached that.
Almost works similarly to the slash chords in terms of the way that you get that movement happening, whether it's the lowest note that you build up or whether it's the highest note that moves up, but keeping the chords coherent from one to the next in that structure. It's very cool. Like
and knowing that that movement's there helps you to decide like when to kick in the distortion. You know, you've got this movement that's going down or this movement that's going up. When you hit that last chord at the end of it, that's a good opportunity to kick in a whole distortion layer and change the song.
Yep.
That's kind of how that song worked.
You're saying it was kind of the motif thing where it's like, you know, you play that one part and you play it quietly, and then a little bit later on you play that part more loudly, and you know you're adjusting it as you go. So it's the same part, but it speaks very differently in the one section versus the other section. One section it's very quiet, the other section it's very in your face, even though it's the same phrase, and that's very cool too, to show the different sides of the dynamics with that.
Yeah, that's one of the nice things of the 90s. You started to get the blend of clean and distortion. You know, grunge kind of made you want to play clean and distorted at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Grunge was good that way. A lot of good examples there. The other thing is, a lot of times for me, it's about simple arrangements also. So whether it's just a couple of instruments, whether it's just guitar, bass, and drums, or whether it's a little more filled out than that. Talking about the simplicity of songs, I'm a big fan of those simple arrangements. But when it does get to the big orchestral, layering, 15 layers of whatever, you can definitely get a lot more creative with that. But it's also cool to see what you can do with just the simple layers. That's always good too.
Yeah.
Like get a simple 3-piece arrangement like Rush, for example, is one that always blows my mind that they can create that much of a wall of sound.
They're
with 3
not
guys.
simple though. They do
They're
not
simple,
arrange
yes.
simple arrangements.
That's true.
But
they are able to pull them off with 3
simple
guys. So.
is nice. Yeah, and the simple approach when it comes to like just riffs and chord construction, the ears that you're trying to get to listen, we are naturally inclined to certain simple progressions, certain chord structures. Our ears just pick up on it. We assimilate it very fast. I have no problem making a nice simple arrangement.
Mm-hmm. And that's where some of the stuff that we worked on from Jake's channel, Signals Music Studio, where he was talking about substitutions, like just doing minor adjustments, borrowing chords. So you're doing whether you're doing a straight 1 6 4 5 or whatever, you're doing just some normal quote unquote arrangement, and then you just borrow a chord and plop it in there, and all of a sudden it changes the whole character of the song. And I really like that too, because it's starting with something very simple, making one small adjustment and changing the whole thing.
Yeah, what I like about his approach there is it starts with something that the ear's familiar to, and then you throw that one chord in the right place and you throw the listener off. And if it's a good chord and it works with the rest, people do like.
Even if it is unexpected. That was the thing, is it's unexpected, so the ear's not ready for it, but when it does pop in, the ear's like, ooh, that was nice, that was different, I like that. So it jumps right on that. Very cool. I think we're going to take a look also at the one from Jake. So let me go ahead and start that sharing here. We have that for us right here. And that was from Signals Music Studio, which is our buddy Jake here. And he's got all kinds of stuff with writing in minor keys and scale degrees. Tony remembers we've looked at a few of these with Jake here. Some were for
Jake
chord
is
progressions
awesome.
and songwriting, how to harmonize. Voice leading was one that
I
we did
was
last
watching
week.
that acapella one.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one I was watching earlier. I was telling you about. Yeah, he's got some good tips on auto tune with acapella.
Yeah,
or pitch correction, which is how I like to think of it.
Exactly, because I mean, some people they're trying to just use the auto tune or the pitch correction just to tweak a little, to correct something here or there, and other people they're trying to use it just as a sound device, like that's the sound they're going for that song.
They're trying to depend on it as their tuner. Like they're using the auto tuner and letting it do all the work, and auto tuner does not necessarily know where it's supposed to go. Fixing certain problematic parts. Yeah,
it has its uses.
It starts to sound like the vocator effect.
Exactly. Yep. It's very easy to make it sound like within 3 notes of somebody singing, that they're using that, and that it's just completely covering the entire vocal track, and it just you're kind of like, yeah, okay, another one of these. But if it is, again, just a minor thing here and there, that's fine. And if it is, if it leads to the song itself or fits the song, that's different.
Yeah, the plus side nowadays is you can use something like that and it's more accepted. Late 90s and around then, it was like weird. It was like, whoa, Cher, what are you doing? Now it's become more accepted. It's part of certain sounds and certain songs. But at the same time, if it gets overused, like it is beginning to, then you want to pull back on that technique.
Yeah. Now
it would be like using wah all the time with a guitar.
Mm-hmm. Yep, the ear fatigues of it. Like it's great to use now and then as a technique, as a just something to do. But if it gets overused, any of them, if you overuse it, it just becomes something that really defines the sound that you're hearing, and that can just turn people off right away. The one that
anytime you're modulating sound.
Mm-hmm. Was the riffing with the modes. Remember we did the Phrygian Morse code math metal? was one of them, and Epic Dorian Dad Rock.
Yeah, I like the Morse code.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Morse code was very cool for the Phrygian death metal, or math metal, I should say. And there was also Mixolydian magic and using the minor scale, and Lydian writing for dreamy instrumental prog. But any of these, like, each of the modes does have its own kind of signature sound to it. The kind of riffs that you can do in that position will kind of define your sound when you're playing in that mode. So if you do move from one mode to another, you're really changing style entirely. So you can sound totally different playing the same notes in Dorian versus playing Ionian versus playing in Phrygian. So getting comfortable with the modes and getting comfortable with where to use them and when when they go with what you're playing is important. And that's always good. So let's go to this one, which was writing prog metal gent with Lydian Dominant. It's a composition lesson from Jake.
Oh, that should get our metal heads perked up.
Exactly. A little more. And it's got the tabs at the bottom there so we can see what's going on here. But it's all pretty straightforward stuff for as far as that goes.
Yeah, I like how he lays out the staff and the tab.
Every single musical scale has its own flavor, its own unique identity.
It's got a little bit of a Rush sound.
Lydian, most people would agree, has this kind of spacey, sci-fi, out there vibe. And in my opinion, Lydian Dominant has all that great stuff, but it's less bright, it's less happy, and it's less floaty. It has a lot more bite to it. It's got a little bit of a zany, harebrained, chaotic feel to it, which I really, really enjoy. It is a weird sounding scale to use in the rock and roll genre. We usually hear Lydian Dominant being talked about by jazz players, but I think it's a completely legitimate scale to use. I've heard it a lot in some really cool progressive metal, the band Intervals. I know specifically they write with it quite frequently. So I want to show you a little bit about the Lydian Dominant scale, what we could do to compose with it, and more importantly, using a scale like this to compose some really complicated rhythmic patterns and, a kind of cool, proggy, genty groove like you heard in the intro right there. So let's get down to it. The first thing we really need to know is what is Lydian Dominant, how do we build it, all that stuff. So a Lydian Dominant scale is the same thing as a Lydian scale, but we've just flatted the 7th note. If you don't know what Lydian is, that's fine. You should probably learn it, but here's how we would build it from scratch. Today, I'm going to start on the note A. If I want to build a Lydian Dominant scale, I'll start on A, and then I'll go travel a whole step, another whole step, another whole step, and then a half step, a whole step, another half step, and then another whole step. And that will give me these notes: A, B, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G, and A. And those would be the notes of A Lydian Dominant. Or you could call it A Lydian flat 7. You can also think of these notes as being the 4th mode of the melodic minor scale. So if you know what a melodic minor scale is, well, if you just start that from the 4th note, then you'll end up with the same sequence of half steps and whole steps. So even right now, we can start hearing a little bit about how the scale feels and the emotion that it conveys. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to hang out on the tonic note. Okay, that's A. I'm just going to hang out here. And then I'm going to go up and down the scale. Right? And I could call that a riff. It's kind of it's a pretty linear riff just going up, but you hear it's not happy like major, it's not sad like minor, it's not really dark and crushing like a Phrygian Dominant or something like that. It's got this weird kind of quirkiness to it, which I really, really enjoy. And that's just going up and down. What if I mixed it up? Right? So that's where I started coming up with the riff that you heard at the beginning, is essentially just playing the notes of the scale and surrounding it a lot with my tonic, which is A. In fact, what I like to do is I like to surround it with the tonic power chord, okay? Imagine if I took every single one of these notes and I turned them all into power chords. A, D, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, and G, right? Well, now I can make a riff just by using those power chords. And then including the notes of the scale. Back to the notes of the scale, back to the power chords. Right? So a little bit of combination of both there. Now, something to keep in mind, when you do power chords, sometimes you'll end up adding a note that is not in the scale. For example, if I play a G power chord, you'll see that my ring finger's playing a D. And there is no D in my Lydian Dominant scale in the key of A. So this is like an illegal power chord. I'm not allowed to play a G power chord. But screw that. I mean, it sounds good. I'm getting the tonality of the flat at 7th by going from that power chord to my A. The fact that this note's not in the key doesn't bother me. It doesn't sound bad, and just the fact that it's not in the key doesn't mean, oh, don't do it. If you like the way it sounds, you should do it. You know, all this music theory stuff isn't to tell you what you can't do. It's to give you ideas of what has been done before and how can you replicate that, and then you're really free to kind of do whatever you want with it. So in this video, really what I wanted to get into is not writing so much note riffs, but more rhythmic riffs. This is the kind of stuff I really like with djent and prog, when you've got these rhythmic pulses that are kind of tricky to follow, and they're really right for polybeater and strange time signatures that flow on top of it. So here's what I did, okay? I took this idea of 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 9. All right, it's a simple concept. Anytime you're working with odd numbers, you're probably going to get something that sounds, you know, progressive and cool. So when you're working with odd time signatures, one thing you shouldn't do is just blast away at every one of those notes. For example, it's kind of boring if I just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Putting gaps in between those rhythmic phrases is way more interesting. For example, a grouping of 7 would sound a little bit more progressive if instead of playing 7/8 notes, I played a dotted quarter note and then 2 quarter notes. That would give me this pulsing of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So anytime you're dealing with an odd time signature, try to subdivide it into smaller groupings and then just play the beginning of those groupings, and you'll get these kind of pulsy, weird time. Oh, I threw my pick. I found it. Okay, so by playing those little accents, you get that pulsing pattern that you've probably heard a lot in prog rock. And you're free to change that. Right now, I'm just doing this consistent pattern of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. But, you know, what if you did 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3? Or what if you did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All different valid options to give you a progressive feel over a simple grouping like 7. So my grouping is consistent. It goes 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And I do that 3 times because I've got 3 groupings of 7. On my last grouping of 9, what I do is a grouping of 3, and then I do a grouping of 4, and then I do a grouping of 2. So that last one is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Putting it all together, here's what it sounds like. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So what I'm doing there is hanging out on an A power chord and just doing the pulses as prescribed. From there, eventually I move up to that B power chord because the 2 chord is an important chord in Lydian dominant. It's a very important chord in the Lydian scale naturally. And since I'm surrounded by all these weird diminished and augmented chords, I want something that sounds nice and easy. That 2 chord is a really good bet in the Lydian key or the Lydian dominant key. And I do have the synthesizers kind of backing up that chord. So I have the synthesizers outlining an A major chord. And then I have the synthesizers outlining an A major with a sharp 11 or a tritone added in there. And then also back to just a regular A major. And of course going to that B chord once again. So I am on a 6 string and I want to make the sound djenty. And A is way up here on the 5th fret. But what if I invert my A power chord? For example, an A power chord is just an A and an E. So I could play an A here and an E here, and I'd have the notes of an A power chord. They're just reversed, right? And these are like inverted power chords. Metallica's done this thing a lot. You see this kind of thing in Smoke on the Water. Smoke on the Water is all those inverted power chords like that, where the root is actually on the thinner string. So instead of playing my A power chord here, how about I just play my A power chord completely open on my 6th string, which is hilarious to just plug away at those zeros like that and not be in drop D, right? So just hanging out there. This would be implying a B because I have my B here and my F sharp right there. Now, this might not sound like an A or a B, but if I add in a bass guitar underneath that, that's going to give these inverted power chords more context. So really what I'm doing is about as djent as it gets on a 6 string, to just plug away at 2 open strings at the same time and still have it somehow sound melodic, right? Now, writing a solo for this would be a lot of fun, but it would also be a different video. So I will do something like that in the future. I wanted to make this video to kind of show you a little bit of the thought process that goes through my head when I decide to write in an exotic scale like Lydian Dominant. It's not really the scale you sit down and write riffs with, but hey, if you give it a try, you might end up with something really surprising. And I really like the way this riff feels. This is actually going to be the verse section in a song I wrote. I have been working for way too long on a concept album. I'm embarrassed to tell you how long I've been working on this concept album, but it's an over-the-top prog rock album, and this song that you're hearing, this riff, is going to be in a song for when our main character travels to the future, right? What better scale to pick for a song about traveling to the future than Lydian Dominant? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a little sneak peek of what the vocals would do on top of this riff, because writing anything on top of odd time signatures can be tricky, but if you really go back to those subdivisions and you look at those accent patterns, then those can kind of be the scaffolding on which any melody that you write hangs on, or any guitar solo you write can hang on those accented patterns. So take a listen to this entire section again, but now with some vocals sang by yours truly. So thanks for watching this video. If you did enjoy this video, please consider supporting my channel on Patreon. I have a link down in the description. If you can't do that, that's fine. Just like, subscribe, favorite, all that kind of stuff. And I will plan on seeing you in the not so distant future.
Very cool. Signals Music Studio. That's Jake Lizio. Definitely some good stuff there on a bunch of different, for that one is writing in prog, but he also has others for whether it's Dorian dad rock or Phrygian math metal, Mixolydian magic. All kinds of good stuff.
Hit that like. Hit that thumbs up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're subscribed all day. Good stuff. So the question is, which others?
Reversing the fifth.
Yeah, power chords reversing the fifth.
The reversing the fifth concept. Yeah, it's a big fan of that.
Yeah, that is a big one.
I mean, I can see how the guitarists that would be popular too.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, a lot of it is to get that deeper sound. You can get lower, without having to tune down. You can just use, the inverted chord lower on the neck, because then you're getting down to the things like if somebody was doing drop A, essentially, instead they can just do it this way, where they're inverting the chord and playing it that way. So it's very cool.
Yeah, with all these guys dropping, everybody's dropping these days.
There's a good reason for it too, though. It's all about what they're going for. Like they wouldn't get the same flapping of the strings. Like if you do actually tune down that low, like the strings are a lot looser, so you'll hear that kind of in the way the note comes across. So things like that won't necessarily translate fully that way, but you can get the idea that way, which is good. Now, the other things for songwriting, there's a bunch of different things that we could look at for that. Like we were talking last week about doing some vocal stuff. We do work with Chris Lipe every Sunday, comes up and or has shows that we do here talking about vocal techniques and all of that. So we definitely have some of those to go over at some point. We have all kinds of ones. I just wanted to make sure that we're hitting all the ones that all the resources that I generally look at on YouTube. I know that we've hit a number of them before, but I just like to make sure that we're hitting them all. Venus Theory was one of the newer ones that I had hit last week, I want to say. This was the one that we found some of the underrated plugins that they didn't, that we wanted to look at. And I think this one was also the one who found Piano Book. So this would have been the one that we looked at last week a little bit for Piano Book.
Oh, this is the one that nudged you to Piano Book?
Yep, exactly. And this was the Venus Theory was the website here for YouTube. His pinned one here is about 10 underrated free plugins you should know about. So that's always a good one to check out. It's a 30-minute video, but that's for free plugins there.
And I want to know about underrated plugins.
Yep. He's got one over here that says a collection of 800 plus instruments for free. And it says it feels like stealing. And I think that was the one we watched the other day with Piano Roll, or Piano Book, I should say. Excuse me, Piano Book being the one that had all the...
That is a massive... That's a massive sampler library.
Yeah, exactly. And free, and open source, and user submissions, and all of that. So it's got so many. It ticks so many of the boxes of things that we want for whatever we're getting. that it's definitely worth a look.
Another one who wants spicy chords.
Yep.
That's 2 tonight.
Beautiful cinematic
Spicy.
music and death metal. Oh, he mentions death metal. We're gonna have to check that out.
Well, it goes to what I would.
Howdy doody, Bucker.
It goes to what? Let's see how we got here. The scale of beautiful cinematic music and death metal.
Bernies, and welcome back. Perhaps you noticed something a little bit different since the last time we spoke. Maybe I've aged like fine wine or milk, or perhaps it's the stunning quality of lighting thanks to this absolutely ridiculous fucking diffuser setup I bought that makes me look so young and spry. I'm not really sure if it translates at all on camera, but I do be feeling like a snack, as the kids say. Anyways, last time we talked scales on the channel, we talked about that funky fresh major scale with that oh so spicy tritone boy that sounds very dreamy and beautiful, better known as the Lydian mode. Today, by request and sort of on the inverse of that equation, I wanted to share with you my other friend, the Phrygian mode, better known by its street name, Spicy Minor. So we'll be going over what the Phrygian mode is, how to play it, and of course some tips for utilizing it in your music. As always with these types of videos, I would love for you to consider this as a homework assignment for yourself to go out and try the Phrygian mode and see what you can make with it. Of course, if you make something cool, feel free to share it with me on social media or the Discord, because I always love to hear what you're out there creating. Before we go choogaloogan along here today, if none of what I'm saying makes any sense, because a at least basic understanding of music theory is going to sort of be required to follow along here, I would recommend checking out my friends over at Hook Theory. They have a bunch of free online resources to learn about music theory and songwriting, and they have a couple really great affordable books that teach you all the foundational elements of music theory and a whole bunch of songwriting and composition tips and tricks that are really useful. Personally, I can't recommend it
good things about it.
Love Hook Theory, and I sort of just steal ideas from it all the time, but hey, that's the way the cannoli crumbles. If you want to check it out for yourself, you can find more information with the link down in the description. Okay, let's talk Phrygian. Phrygian is a lot like the regular old minor scale if we take that out of C. The only difference is this spicy flat 2, and that's what makes it spicy minor. If you wanted to play it using all the friendly keys and not the spicy keys, you can go from E to the next E. And that is Phrygian. If you sit down and pull a Trent Reznor feat Atticus Ross and get real stingy with the third by just not using it at all, we really get the magic of the Phrygian mode front and center. This creates a very enigmatic feeling with a hint of longing and maybe a sense of primal mystique and intrigue with just a whisper of smoked paprika. The third and seventh degrees of a scale typically act as the guide to
See,
its
that's
major
almost
or
like
minor.
cooking.
So by avoiding these, more so the third than the 7 in this case, we can hide the true nature of the scale for a more mysterious feel. And the real color of Phrygian comes from that spicy minor second, as well as combining that with the 4th and 5th degrees of the scale. And that sounds pretty neat. Phrygian is one of those really useful modes that feels very magical when you pull it off because it's not all that hard to utilize. At first pass, it does sound a little bit weird because this really dissonant minor second isn't something that's really a popular tone choice in contemporary, I guess, popular Western music or whatever. But once you understand where the notes of the scale are, you can almost entirely freely combine them to create some very neat chord voicings and colors that you might not get out of more conventional minor or major scales. think that's a really powerful thing, even though it is relatively simple. Some of the best examples you can go check out of Phrygian in action, I think, come from artists like Seb Taylor, more specifically in his work with Kaya Project, where it's used to create a sonic picture by way of utilizing the massive tension in these half steps and the real release and guide coming from the chords that are laid underneath. And you can even combine the major third every once in a while for a bit of Phrygian dominant flavor to get some very spicy moving things. And that's a really, really cool trick. One of the weirder things to remember with the Phrygian mode is that because of this flat 2, our dominant chord, or the 5 chord, isn't good old G minor in this case, but rather becomes one of those spooky diminished chord types that we just normally don't speak of. So with that being said, if you're ever lost when writing in Phrygian and need to work your way back home, the safer bet is to go for your 4 chord, or in this case F minor, and then work down to home or C minor. Because this diminished 5 to 1 doesn't really provide that same sense of coming home as it does in other modes. So just something to keep in mind as you bravely venture forward. So that is a tour around Phrygian, aka Spicy Minor. Phrygian is a really fun mode, and I think the beauty of it is that it can really be kind of as light or as dark as you want it to be, but I'll leave that for you to explore, because be it not the journey, but merely the lessons of paths taken. As always, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something, and I hope this inspires you.
Oh, the journey is a lesson.
Awesome.
Absolutely. And again, this is from Venus Theory.
How to get from here to there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. How to get from here, there, and everywhere. And again, you're going to want to check out that 10 free underrated plugins later. And the collection of 800 plus instruments for free was another great one. That was from 10 days ago. That's where we got the piano book from last week.
You know, him and I think Jake, is Jake the other one? They have very similar voices.
True. Yep. And both, I think, were like a deeper voice than I expected from seeing the pictures of them. But good stuff. What else do we have here? We have
and they're great at instructions.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Some for ozone elements, weird free plugins over here.
Oh, those isotope plugins. I'd like to do that one night. And they have a bunch of cool plugins.
Absolutely. And they have one over here for that cinematic piano sound with just 4 plugins. So they're talking about, I think 2 of them are free. Or actually, it might all 4 be free. We'll have to take a look at that one as well later on. And they have ones on building a music production PC, generating creative ideas, just all kinds of, you can go down the rabbit hole for days on any one of these, but any of them are a worthy journey, because each one of these, you'll stumble on things that you didn't know or you neglected in your music training, or things that you didn't realize, or things that you've, like Tony said earlier, things that he's been using and just didn't know technically what to call them with the slash chords. It's one of those things that it's an important concept, and you'll use it by accident before you know what it is even. And then when you realize how it makes sense with the theory, then it's just even better because you're able to utilize it when the situation calls for it more easily. Very cool. How about fixing a bad melody? I think that would be a good break there. Let's see.
If you ever feel like this is it, like your life isn't going anywhere and all you want is to work on music every
Howdy doody, buckaroonies. Welcome back to another episode of Morning Coffee with Cameron. Do you want a bunch of the same melodies that are in every other melody pack, but I change a couple of notes in them? How about a pack that is absolutely jam-packed with all the Beatport Top 100 melodies that I reversed and put into a different key? How about an entire pack filled with next-level, game-changing, buzzword hype stuff because I got an associate's degree in marketing and decided to start a music business because I've been producing for 15 whole minutes, and you can have it all for only 5 easy payments of $89.95. Well, then this is not the video for you, and this just looks absolutely ridiculous, and yeah, I'm done with that now. In today's video, we're going to be talking all about melody, how to write a good melody, or how to take a melody you've written that's maybe 80 or 90% of the way there and just fix it and make it work for the track. And we're going to be doing all this using a couple of tools and techniques that you can go try out today, like right now. Today's video is also sponsored by my friends over at Hook Theory. Hook Theory is one of my favorite online resources for all things related to music theory. I don't even know how many times I've talked about it on the channel here over the years. It's just absolutely awesome, and it's something you should know about. If you're absolutely new to music theory, Hook Theory's got an excellent book that gets you up to speed on all the basics and shows you a lot of interactive and practical exercises that you can immediately take and use in your sessions. Otherwise, if you're a bit more familiar, there's another book as well that goes into some more interesting and advanced concepts to help you write and utilize things in some new and interesting ways, again, with a lot of very practical interactive exercises. The free version of Hook Theory is actually incredibly deep and really powerful, but the paid version alongside the books is even better. It unlocks just a massive set of tools that are really useful for composition or suggesting things or helping you find different avenues to explore with your music. So big thank you to Hook Theory for sponsoring today's video and helping to support the channel. If you want to check out Hook Theory or the books for yourself, you can use my link down in the description. I really appreciate it as I get a small kickback as well, so it's a great way to start writing better music today and help support ya boy right here in the process. Here we are in the DAW with a pretty basic starting point. I've got a pad, I've got a bass line, I've got some other stuff, and I've got my chord progression, which is just an F minor down to an F minor over E flat. Really nothing too horribly interesting or spicy. But what we're gonna do is plunk down a melody on top of this, just the first thing that comes to mind, and then we're gonna start playing with it using Hook Theory and talking about how to improve it. With that, I'm not purposefully going to write a totally horrible and out of key melody because I'm going to assume you at least know the basics of how to write a melody that is in key. If you don't know how to do that, you could pause this video, go check out some of the lessons from Hook Theory, and then join us back here once you've got the basics down. Melody will come in here. And maybe we'll bring in a new melody here. Cool, I think you get the idea. So let's roll back to about here and just record in a melody. Three, two, one, go. Sure. So nothing too terrible, but maybe just not all that interesting. And if we bring that around to this next part, how does it sound? Not too bad, but there's room for improvement, and let's talk about how to take a melody from this to a more finished melody that really works better with the song. So to get the ball rolling, let's open HookPad here, and I've started things off. I went in and changed the key to the key of my song. This is going to be F minor, and I laid down my chords. I have an F minor, then I have an F minor over E flat. So to do that, I just went in here to the bass sets, set the bass to E flat, and then grabbed the F over E flat right there. Now we've got our chord progression. Let's just duplicate this out because it goes around twice. Paste that in, and we are now ready to go. So we could recreate our melody here, but that might be rather tedious. So what we can actually do is go to File and then Import a MIDI melody. Back here in the DAW to export a melody in MIDI, I'm just going to open a new project here. I'm going to copy this MIDI, bring it into this new session, activate that. Okie dokie, and we'll go to File, Export MIDI, and I'm just going to export this to the folder, and we'll bring it into Hook Theory. Okay, back here in HookPad, let's go to the beginning. File, Import MIDI Melody, and this was new idea, F minor, something like that. I'm going to ignore the meter and tempo information, and now we've imported our melody. Let's give it a play. Cool. So what can we do to improve this melody? The tool we're going to be using is the guides up here at the top. If we click this, we now get guides as to what note is available in that chord. And this is a really good way to reinforce your melodies and play with a couple of different ideas. With these guides on, we see that the notes that are in that chord are highlighted. These are going to be our strong notes. These are notes in the melody that tie into what is happening in underneath of it, whether that's the chord or the vocal harmony or whatever it might be. The other notes are the notes that are in key, but they're not in the chord happening underneath. So these are going to be our tensions or color notes or whatever you want to call them. And these can be helpful to build tension, build anticipation, maybe lead the voicing into a new chord, and all sorts of other things. So if we take a look at this melody, most of it is a good mix of everything. We've got some that are very reinforced, some that are a bit more loose, and then we kind of go back into something a bit more reinforced. So let's take this idea and change all these notes purely to strong notes. Maybe we'll go up, that's good. Drop that down. And now let's take a listen to the new melody using purely the notes that are in with the chord underneath. Now that works, but it's maybe just not all that exciting. But this is a super easy way to fix a melody if you've got something that feels pretty good, but maybe there's one or two notes that bug you and you don't know why. This is a really great way to simply change those to be strong notes or tension notes, and that can really alleviate a lot of problems. But as you can probably hear, using only the strong notes is going to be a little bit trite and boring. So now we can start to experiment with this melody by changing where these tension and release points are. So I really liked the way that this sort of walked down. So now we've got so maybe we could change this one to kind of go back up in sort of that step fashion. I kind of like that interval jump there is kind of cool. So we're going to go back to F here. And that would be an F. So maybe we could jump down here and go above the F and try that. So we're kind of flirting around that F, and that way when we go back to the F, when it loops back around, it's going to feel a bit stronger. So let's go back and give that a play. I think that feels pretty good. Didn't like that. That's a little too mushy and weird. How about this, maybe? Cool. I think that resolves nicely. Let's try that just so it's a little bit closer, because we're going to go back to this B flat here, and that provides a lot of tension jumping up to that E flat. So we don't want to get, I don't know, too similar. Cool, and we've built a better melody in only a couple of minutes, really. Now that we've fixed this melody, we could then go back into our DAW and recreate this, but if you have the paid version of Hook Theory, you can actually go up here, File, and export the MIDI file. So I'm just going to export that, and we're good to go. Let's drag that into the DAW. Okay, dragged that in here. I'm going to grab this lead, and let's see how that sounds compared to our original melody. I'm just gonna get rid of that so we have the exact same thing going on underneath. Let's hear our melody versus the corrected melody using some of the techniques inside of HookPad. So, a pretty subtle difference, but I feel like it does kind of work a lot better against these chords. So let's move that in to this new section where I've actually got some different chords going on underneath. So that's these guys here. And let's hear how that melody lines up with that, because those chords are actually playing off the existing chords going on underneath. So this should feel a lot better and feel a lot more glued together than the original version, where once those new chords came in, it sort of started to drift and feel a bit off. Cool, and I think we've got a pretty solid melody here now. Of course, doing this over and over can get pretty boring, so I wanted to show another one of my favorite tools in HookPad and Hook Theory to start iterating on ideas and start getting something a bit more interesting. I'm going to turn off the guides here, and what we're going to do is click a chord, and now I'm going to go to the tone sets. This is going to look at the notes that are playing in the melody and say, hey, based on these notes that are happening, these are some chords you could use that would work with it. So I think maybe...
Wow, I love that arrangement.
It's a great
Let's start on something a little bit different. So now let's listen to...
That reminds me of Chris's coloring
with
approach.
some chords that have now been set to function against the melody. So that works. That's maybe not exactly the right feel, but it's getting
very
somewhere.
nice.
Let's take this and just keep expanding on this idea. I think we're actually just gonna...
Does he mention the software he's using here?
Maybe.
Yep, that's HookPad.
Let's take a look at perhaps
he's using a
going
paid version,
to
so it's got a few extra tools, but even the free version has a lot of good stuff.
something like that, and let's change this major
like their
5
approach.
for A flat major 7. That might be kind of spicy. So let's see how this sounds.
Again with the spicy.
Spicy meatball.
Okay, major 5 again, little too spice. Can't give too much spice. So not loving that. How about looking for something with a similar flavor?
Options. Very cool.
So that's kind of
Oh,
cool. Maybe
I
we'll
just had my own idea there at the end, going
nice.
up.
bass set. That might sound a bit more interesting.
I like that little red one in the middle, that the off red.
Yep.
So that's kind of cool, but now the melody's out. Let's flip back to our guides. And maybe we can just change a couple quick things here. Let's try that. And I think we could just move down a little bit here to the B flat. Let's try that.
One more.
All right, I think we've built a new melody. And then from here, we can maybe lead into something new.
And,
so this chord is
when you're looking at melody arrangements, the ups and downs. Look at the down approach across the third bar and the last bar.
Yep. Getting that little walk down happening.
Yeah, finding your compositional wave, whether you're going up or down. Both directions work great depending on where you want to go next.
That was one of the ones that Jake was talking about last week with whether it was parallel motion or contrary motion and things like that, where things are moving together or things are moving diverging, going apart, whether you have things ascending or descending, and whether that's doing a build up or a letdown or however you're doing it. I also love the fact that he's not using just one measure of this chord, one measure of that chord. He's using partial measures and making chord changes in the middle here. Like if you see that blue one, that C that's in the second or third measure there, is only, it's like 3/4 of a measure, and then it jumps to the purple one and stays there to the end of that next one. There's changes like that in the middle of a bar that wouldn't normally jump out at you. Like normally if you're thinking about a 1/6/4/5 or a 1/4/5 or whatever, you're thinking one chord per measure and then go. In this case, you're seeing that there's a lot more variety, a lot more option available to you by making these little tweaks throughout.
Well, that's the beauty of knowing your chords, because you'll eventually realize how many options you have. The notes that are part of the chord you're in, and the ones that are accents that are next to the note that's part of the chord.
Yep. And just that whole
the 1-3-5 relationship is that is the beginner intermediate music theory. Like, learn chords so that way you can figure out all your options on where to go in your melody.
Yep. And again, just being able to turn on the guide tones and have it essentially give you the blueprint saying, these are the good tones. And then if you just move your melody so that they're either hanging out on the good tones, or at least, like you're saying, you're aware of the good tones, whether you're skirting around them or, using them directly or whatever, you're aware of where they are. So you know what your targets are for the different tones.
It's like having that music teacher. Like that music teacher sitting next to you as you're practicing the piano, slapping you with the ruler. No,
I was thinking about a keyboard where only the correct notes would allow you to press the key down, so the rest of them are just like frozen.
Oh, that would be an interesting. Hey, electrocute them. If I hit the wrong note, shock me. Eventually, I won't hit it, or I'll just keep pounding on it
and grow a sensitivity or an immunity to the electrical charge. All right, he's got 3 minutes left on here, so let's see what he's got here.
Those are interesting teaching techniques.
Electrocution? Absolutely.
Well, or color arrangement.
Well, even the color arrangement, like you can see in the top left of the area there, where it mentions the 7 different chords, and you've got the purple, they keep them in that color. They stay in the rainbow order, so you're essentially doing Roy G. Biv going across, because there's 7 tones, 7 colors in the rainbow. It kind of makes it easier to visualize what's going on there, with the root always being that purple, the 7's always going to be that blue, the green's always going to be that 6. So it's helping you identify what the colors, what the chord tones are and where they should be. And then again, just by having suggestions going into the, I think he said it was tone pairs, where you can go in and have it choose, based on this melody, these chords would work with that. That's a huge toolkit or a huge amount of music theory that's being unlocked just by a simple tool like that, which I think is just very cool.
And
it's
a great
cheating, but
visual
it's cheating in a
approach.
great way.
I wouldn't even call it cheating. It's just a different way of learning. It's like guitar, like learning guitar with Guitar Hero these days. The color approach, seeing a note as it comes down and you hit it.
You can learn valuable
We're
skills
just
that
seeing
way,
it, you know, we're seeing it linear, left to right in this sense, but it's the
And getting
modern
accustomed
way
to both
of
approaches is helpful
learning.
too. And that's also where the visualizer we got for the piano the other day was a good one, with the notes either coming down or coming up from the piano, depending on how you wanted to have it.
Yeah, I've been playing around with that. Finally got that set up last week.
Excellent. Yeah, we'll definitely look more into that going forward. All right, let's let him finish out this 3 minutes here, and then we'll see what else we got going on here.
Go back to the next section here and go to Magic, or maybe we'll just go to
Magic,
Popular,
Magic
actually,
has really good stuff.
and find where we could go from here. So maybe we could flip into E flat, and then we'll go to Magic, which is going to then suggest what should come next based on kind of the overall probability of how most songs go. So now we've built some new chords here. Let's give this a play and see how this kind of resolves back around. Major 3 feels a bit bland. Minor 5. Maybe we'll just get a nice inversion on that. Maybe we'll do something here with this major 7. Cool. Now we've got that. I'm going to export this once again here. So I'm going to export MIDI. And now we could bring this into our session to start evolving our track into something new. Dragging this out, we've got our new lead line here. We've got some new chords here. I'm going to move those chords up as well. And then we've got the bass. So let's move that to the bass part and see how this all starts to flow together. So maybe this kind of leads into an entirely new section, and we would need to probably start working on this melody a bit more, but I think we get the overall idea here, where we could just simply go back into HookPad, plug in our melody, and start reworking it to fit with these new chords that we're introducing underneath to then evolve and progress this track into something new. And it's really that simple. By utilizing this strong note versus tension note technique, it's a very easy way to figure out what might be wrong with your melody and why it might feel a bit off, as well as finding points where you can start to turn things around and evolve it into something new and take it into some more interesting directions. Of course, using hook theory and the hook pad as well, that opens up a lot of new avenues to start finding alternative chord progressions, finding chords that fit the melody if you've maybe got a melody but no idea what chord progression to write underneath it, and any number of other tools that you can use inside of hook theory and hook pad to complete your songs, gather ideas, and then bring them into your sessions and turn it into a finished piece of music. So that's all I got for this one. Big thank you to Hook Theory once again for sponsoring today's video and helping to support the channel, and thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found this helpful. I hope you learned something, and of course, as always, I hope this inspires you to get out there and make something awesome.
Yeah, very cool. It's got some very good tools there and some good ways to work with all that stuff. And I think we should check out the hook theory as well. We'll definitely look at that some more for next time as well. I'm going to try to bring it up a little bit here
just
to see what we can look at briefly. I did look at hook theory once before in the past, but it's been a while that since I've looked at it, so I'm not sure what all we have here, but let's see. There was definitely, I do recall it being very useful, even just the free version that was there, being able to get in there and just looking at the theory itself. I can just bring up the webpage here and go over a little bit of it with us, just so we can see what we're dealing with here. We have this one here. creating amazing music with HookPad Music Sketchpad. So it's just
Oh, is this
hooktheory.com.
what he was using?
Yep, this is what he was using. And it's called hooktheory.com. There's Hook Theory and HookPad are two different, I think they're two sides of the same coin, and they're both probably here under Hook Theory. But just looking at this little demo in the beginning here, where it's the same thing that he was using right there, you see the different color coordination for the chords, the different color coordination for the scale degrees, whether you're writing out melodies using basically like Legos, just dropping in notes to change things around. They're writing in the lyrics on there as well, and having it write the sheet music out for you. There's just a lot of stuff that you can do with it. And again, this looks like it's been upgraded a lot since the last time I looked at it. But even that was very useful even at that point with the different things for the, showing you the guide tones and showing you all the things that you can do from there.
Oh, this looks very intuitive.
Absolutely. And it has like different embellishments you can do, and suspensions, and it teaches you little lessons in each one so you can see what's going on with different changes and all that. Modal mixture, melody over borrowed chords. I mean, you could really dive in and just get a whole lot of theory banged in there real quick. And again, the fact that it's a resource that you can continue to reference going forward and utilize for making songs is just very helpful. Like taking any song that you're stuck with, or a song idea that was a nugget of an idea that you haven't fully fleshed out, you can take it here and really build it into something very cool. Just
and never discount theory. Like, whether you want to be that passionate musician who like comes from the heart, or you want to be that technical one who knows like every technique, there's a happy medium between both of those. Because I want to be both those types of musicians.
And I'm looking at this one right here. This looks like a game, Chord Crush, where you're probably training your ear, like seeing which chords, build progressions based on this, the ability to listen to a song and know exactly what's being played.
I love that they're making games out of like arrangement. Composing and arranging is the other side of music we don't talk enough about.
Yeah, we do neglect it a lot because a lot of people, they have their, they have a hook that they play, or they have a melody line that they play, or they have a song, line that they sing, but getting it fully fleshed out into a full song is where they would tend to struggle. Because they're not as much of a songwriter as they are just an idea person who has that nugget of an idea. And this is just one of those places where you can really flesh that stuff out.
And again, you might have somebody who just wants to be a guitarist. They don't want to compose or arrange. They just want to play some guitar parts and let somebody else do that. But somebody has to do that. Otherwise, you can't make songs without some arranging.
Right over here, you have the HookPad Try for Free option. And this is where you can get in there and actually start working with exactly the tools that he was looking at there, where as far as the progressions and the melody lines and putting in the lyrics and all of that, it's just a lot of really good stuff you can do in here. And whether it's turning your songs into written music, or whether it's just getting an idea fully fleshed out and trying to get it so that you could hand this to somebody else and they would understand what you're saying musically and be able to jam with you, for example, on a song that you just wrote. It's very cool.
Yeah, I really like the way it color codes those arrangements. It totally reminds me of Chris Peddleton.
Mm-hmm.
That was the Tennessee approach with that song you showed me.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
Kevin
this
Clark.
is the
Kevin
same
was,
mentality. Oh, Kevin, yeah.
Yep. And it was the same idea with the coloring the chords. And when he handed me off the tab that they put together, I want to say it was, not sure if it was him or if it was Antonia who put together the chords for that one in particular. I think it was called Circles, was that song. And you're talking about the way that he had it written out in a whole chart for me, where it had the colors for like there's an A section, B section, A section, B section, like we're going back and forth like that. And it made it very easy to kind of see the Lego blocks of how the song was coming together when I was trying to put together a bass line for it.
Yeah, it had so many part changes across the whole song. There was like 3 different themes with
and that's where
multiple parts in each theme.
And that little roadmap is really the only reason I was able to stay, as on top of the progression as I was, be able to tell which sections are coming up and how long we're staying here. It was a really good cheat sheet for me to keep me on track as we were going through the songs. Very cool style.
Yeah, I've been hearing of HookPad for a while. I'm sold now. This is going on this weekend.
Yeah, and as I said, here's a minute 20. Let's see what we have here.
So they were changing the styles as they went along there.
Yep. Changing the styles of the rhythm right there as he went along, and changing which instruments were playing, and so now it's a bass part, now it's a lead line. Very cool. And drag and drop MIDI, even better.
I think the greatest thing about MIDI is its flexibility to tweak each note in any way you like. In this video I will give you a short demo of HookPad's new MIDI drag and drop feature, which allows you to create a MIDI file in HookPad and drop it quickly into a DAW. This way you can bring together HookPad's unique, easy to use songwriting tools and the almost unlimited possibilities of your DAW. So to demonstrate the new features, I'll just open one of our demo songs. Let's take Arcade Madness. Now let's say we want to have those nice arpeggiated lines in our DAW. All we have to do is to select the bars we want to export and press B to open the band browser.
Are
I'm
they
really
running
excited
that
about
in a
this new
browser?
hotkey, as for me it was that obvious to have B for the band browser
Looks like
that I kept on pressing B every time I wanted to change an instrument, although I knew nothing would happen. Anyway, so now we can finally press B to open and close the band browser. On the left side you can see that there are a bunch of new buttons, one for each instrument track. Just click on the one on the track you want to export and HookPad automatically creates a MIDI file and drags it into your downloads folder. From there you can drop it into your DAW. It's that simple. If you want to drag and drop all tracks at once, just click here. Now let me give you a few examples as to what you can do with MIDI drag and drop. If you are stuck and need some
make that
inspiration
simple.
for a great chord progression,
very cool.
HookPad can help you getting started with its magic chord feature.
That's the one
When
I
you
like,
have
the
found
magic
the
chord
right chord progression, just export it and drop it into your DAW. Usually this breaks the barrier and your songwriting should be
Oh,
much
that's a
easier
great
from
piano
there.
plugin. I've used that one.
I think this still needs a guitar. If you have ever tried to play a strummed guitar on your keyboard, you know how frustrating that can be. Fortunately, HookPad has built in a decent guitar strumming algorithm, which we can use to our advantage. We just fill in the chords we
Delay the
need,
start of the notes.
select a strumming pattern, export the part, drop it into Studio One, and are ready to go.
Very good dynamics in that.
Another example are drum beats. I know that a lot of you non-drummer folk have problems to fully understand what a drummer is doing and need some help with your drum arrangements. In HookPad,
And
all
this
our
is still
drums
one
are
of the
coming
most
pre-arranged
valuable
with some ins and
drum
crash cymbals at the right place.
plugins.
All you
are
have
the
to do
most
is to
useful
choose
right
a
now.
drum patch, select a few bars and create the MIDI file, which is mapped after the general MIDI specification. Just drop it onto a drum track inside your song and have fun. So this is the end of my short demo. If you liked the video, press subscribe and share it to your friends. If not,
Drag and drop there. Works instantly in desktop and mobile browsers, so it is completely a browser functional.
Yeah, I'm betting the desktop version is, like you said, an app, an HTML5 app basically wrapped. That's become the norm.
And again, these are the things that they demonstrated before, whether it's the chords or whether it's the melody parts. Everything's very well laid out here as far as, giving you little instructional videos on how to do different aspects of the software. And again, it's been a while since I've looked at it, and it has changed a good bit since then. But even then, just seeing the chord magic and everything else that it has with it was definitely something that brought me to it at the beginning.
And it has an approach on traditional theory. Like, this is the best way to learn theory nowadays. If you haven't in the past, that's going to help you understand 1-5-4s and all that lingo you hear people talk.
Absolutely. And it's critical to get that into your understanding of music, because it is that useful to be able to have conversations with people. If I jump into a jam and somebody says, "Oh, this is a 1-6-4-5 in the key of G," I'm set. We're done. Like, I don't need to talk more about what we're doing.
Unless you want to be that musician who just adds a guitar part or a vocal part, but doesn't care what everybody else does with it. If you want to interact with other musicians, you got to learn to speak in some language that the other ones understand. Theory is a big part of that. It's our English.
I just clicked on the try for free just to jump right into it and see what we have here.
Yeah, that looks like it's running right in the browser right now. Amazing.
So 1-4-5-1 and a 1-6-4-5. And up here.
Oh, that's nice.
That's the beginning section. And then again, if we went back to the guides section, that shows us which notes are in key. So if you were trying to draw a melody line, you could just jump in and start putting notes in. Put in root notes.
Well, it's nice that it color codes the ones that are going to work good.
Exactly.
Again, guiding you.
And in this case, my placement is all wrong, but I'm just kind of clicking and going real quick. Put a 3 in there. What about a 2?
Well, the funny thing is that those off-time hits on some of those might actually work really good to give it a human feel. Sometimes that is the key.
No idea. Let's see. See how a little bit of tweaking on the timing could make a difference there.
So yes, there was 5 notes that I would have fixed there, and they were some of the off ones, but that little purple one actually was not bad in the beginning. That one worked good. Yeah, it had a nice little lead into the next measure.
And that was the 6, and you can see actually where in the when it was in the 4 chord, that 6 note is in there, but in the 5 chord, it's definitely not. It sits between the 5 and the 7.
Yeah,
so it's kind of.
And the red right
really
after,
work, but it does.
In the 4th bar, the red does come in off. You don't want that coming in there.
Right.
You want it right at the beginning. That's an easy fix.
Yep.
And then the other one was, I think the 2 purples just around each other was just made it sound MIDI-ish,
Yeah. Let's see if just those 2 note changes make a difference.
Yeah.
And again, just kind of randomly drawing things out, but yeah.
The yellow in the 4, I would actually slide over so it hits right on the end of the beat.
Yep. And definitely didn't like the orange.
Yeah, I would put the orange at the beginning, like at the 1.
And this one can go here. So you're thinking right there.
Yeah, right off of the yellow, like a little roll as it hits that blue.
And that orange shouldn't even be in that. That's a D being put into a C chord, so that's technically it's a 9. So it shouldn't necessarily sound right.
For
but
it would want resolution. So hopefully where you go to is a resolving note.
Exactly, go to the 5.
C, E, or G. Well, C or G. Actually not bad.
Yep. And again, just having things starting in the middle of a bar isn't really normal, so kind of do that, and maybe even bring this back here. But again, just in kind of screwing around a little bit. Actually, let's make a little motion that will come from there down to the 5.
And you can pretty much hear as you're going along where you want to massage that.
Oh yeah, where you want to see it go. And on each of them, they have these little buttons here: raise octave, lower octave, raise half, lower half. Like you can change each of the things that you're doing just with very quickly.
Make triplets.
Make triplets, yep.
Some of those are really useful, yeah.
Not too bad. I would probably get that last note out of there and bring that 5 to the very end of the measure. There. Get this guy out of there.
I'm starting to hear a bass line. Dum 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 dum.
Yeah. And this one's not hitting right at the middle of the measure there. That's the thing, is the off time hits were just a little bit too off time. I think some of these are not too bad. Like I said, that one time cross note was okay, but
I like this grid arrangement approach, especially with the colors. Wish some of the other ones would utilize this.
Indeed. That's a little better. But yeah, not bad for a couple seconds of work. And again, that's utilizing the guides and looking at the different things that we could do there for the lyrics they were talking about. You can type your lyrics in and have them actually, go along with the tones.
Oh, do they have a timing thing to tie the lyrics to the melody? Because that's useful.
Yep. You can see it actually typing them in as I'm typing them in. It goes syllabically across there. These lyrics go with the... And then to continue using notes, you need to purchase HookPad. So the lyric section is something that you would have to buy to use, but that's fine.
And I could see that being valuable. When making those karaoke tracks and things, a lot of people have asked me to make, lyric videos to go with them.
Right.
And it is doable, but it's time consuming, and the tools out there don't actually save me a lot of time. You have to go through a song 4 or 5 times just to punch out where the lyrics are supposed to hit.
Yeah. Let's see what we have for the mixer here. We got the clicker, the compressor, master, the bass, drums, chords, and the lead. Everything's got its own little mixer built right in there. Very nice. You've got nudge options up here, so you can nudge things and zoom things.
Yeah, nudging is important. Being able to move it, like, whether it's one beat over or, how you set your snapping. Because when you're dragging and dropping notes and parts and all these things, your snapping is the difference between moving something where it shouldn't go or moving it exactly to the time that it's in. When you're watching Jason with Reaper and like he's moving those parts around, if his snapping wasn't set up right, you can really fuck your parts up.
Yeah, for sure.
If you're going down to like 32nd or 64th level snapping.
Now down here they have a bunch of different templates for the bands. So you can load up, like this would be an orchestral. There's also jazz and electro and ska. There's just a whole bunch of different options for different templates. And that gives you the different sounds, the different lead lines, the different harmony lines, and all of that build
Arrangement. Arrangement instruments. No kidding. Wow.
Or jazz. It's got a new load at the bottom.
Dude, that's a total shift.
And then bossa nova.
Kidding.
Reggae. A little faster reggae, that's okay. Now for that, instead of 120, maybe we bring that down. Say if that's about, I don't know, 80-ish. 83, we'll say.
Ooh, swing timing, huh?
Even just for exploring how an arrangement can go, that's awesome to be able to see all the different.
It's like playing, yeah. It's like playing Simon, except with musical instruments.
Simon
Those
says.
variations really were different.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. I like that.
And you notice that swing tempo option in there. That's cool too. If you can set the swing and say, like, you know, variate between -3 BPM, +3 BPM, you can really do some interesting things with reggae variations.
Absolutely. And that was actually, let's set it to swing timing and see what it does.
Oh, it does. Yeah.
Half a beat or a quarter beat. So we'll say half a beat. Sounds a little weird that way.
You see the possibilities, right?
Oh yeah. Let's swing it on a quarter beat melody instead. And again, down the bottom, we have all the different things. We've got 3 different drum tracks. We've got a bass track, 2 different harmony tracks, and a lead track. For each one, you've got the different sounds you can get with synths and pipe lead, legato, and all these different options for each of the voices that we're looking at. So for the bass, for example, it's a thumb bass reggae, but you could pick all these different options. Rock bass, pop bass, synth bass, orchestral, keys, jumping off beat.
Yeah, they give you
offbeat.
a lot of options there, but at the same time keep it focused on the theory. Like these templates, the arrangements and how they put them together, all theory based.
Yeah. What else do we have here? Sections is where you could sit there and have, verse, chorus, bridge, intro, and all of that. So you can break it out into different sections. Over at the voices over here, you can look at how many visible voices there are and which ones are active at any time. use the smart octaves and all of that. There's a lot of options. I mean, I could see myself buying this as well, because this is something where, again, some features are not allowed or not available in the free version. It allows you to check them out, but in order to fully utilize the features, you might need to actually buy the software. But this is something I would consider.
And hey, when a software does actually, when a software has a useful feature, I don't mind paying for it. Just make a useful feature. Exactly. If nothing else, the theory, color coding approach and arrangement, this is a great arrangement tool. Yeah, absolutely. I could see putting this in my tool belt.
And even just watching him work with it, watching him, extend different chords, like, oh, I want this C to go, extra. It's just, you stretch it and it's done. It's like not complicated. It's just.
Oh, very nice, the stretching. I've utilized some of this in other approaches with like Cakewalk. You do have some of these built into your DAWs, but the color coding approach, ease of stretching there, that is a feature in itself.
Now look at the chord that I just selected over here, the F chord, and then if you look at the far right under the chord properties, you've got whether it's a triad, a 7, 9, 11, or 13, whether it's the root or first or second inversion, whether you're doing a sus or an add or a sharp 5 or no 3, no 5, you can leave those out. You can do secondary dominance. You can borrow from other.
It really gives you a lot of advanced theory technique that you don't necessarily have to understand. Exactly. I don't have to be able to play that on my keyboard in order to incorporate it into my arrangement.
At the same time, you can do things like if you were looking at the chord magic was one of them, where it can basically tell you what would be expected or what would be popular.
Oh, suggestions.
Suggestions, right? So like this is going by what we've been playing so far, and for this 5 chord, it's saying you could use these other things, or you could say you could use. You got bass sets where you could see.
Oh, so slash chords.
Slash chords, yep. The tone sets, and then you got progressions where you could actually just pick like a 1 5 6 4 or a 1 6 4 5. Just individual blocks that you could just say, oh, I want that one, and then boom, there it is. So being able to just get guides in there.
Yeah, it's really cool how they've approached this software. And total theory driven.
Yep. This is hooktheory.com. There's another section I remember where it had, where it showed kind of a heat map showing, like of all the songs that it analyzed. If a song goes from, let's say, a C to an F, and then what's the next chord, right? It can say, okay, well, 70% of the time that next chord is a G, and 10% of the time the next chord is going to be an F, and it like goes into percentages based on all the music that it has looked at in the past, and can tell you what would normally or what would be the most likely or the most popular chord to go to next, and also give you a bunch of different options that are very very rare but still usable because they're in key or have a good flavor or character to them.
That's so interesting to be able to get that kind of data nowadays and see like all the songs that were made over like the 20th century. This is the approach they took, because it tells me either something that's a good approach to take in general for good commercial music, or an approach I want to avoid to make something completely new and different.
They also do something like
both are viable.
For right here, we're looking at chords in C major, and here we have an F sharp chord, which isn't in the key of C major. So you can see how it has these like striped lines, because it's telling you that it's like between the 4 and the 5. So that's how you can tell that it's a chord. It's a bridge chord or a borrowed chord or a not in key chord, but it's got that striping to let you know that, hey, this is it's going to function somewhere between a 4 and a 5, but it's got both characters to it. Same thing when you go to like the tone sets, you can see just based on the colors what the home key is. The bass sets, they're all basically based around that root, but this is all.
So the reds are the root. Red root.
Red is root. Yep, exactly.
Red root.
Red root.
Yeah. I like the mentality. I can pick it up quick.
Yep. And that's where, again, if we went back to instead of chord magic, I think it was the guides that turned on the chord tones.
I wonder how much they incorporate this into student lessons these days. If you go to school for music theory now, I would imagine they're utilizing this in your classes.
I would think so, to make it easier. or to be able to, more easily transmit the data from one person to another. Down here also, you've got a playback transposition. You can have it actually, like you can be programming it in C, and if you want to hear what it sounds like in B flat, you can just bring it down, two half steps to have it
It's
transpose.
awesome how they do it in the circle like that at the top.
Yep. And all
That's the circle of fifths chart.
Yep. Circle of fifths going around, circle of fourths going the other way. But very important. That is one key piece of information that really helps a lot. And one of the things that helps to remember it is you can see going up the right side, the BEAD, and going down the left side, BEAD. So those help you kind of figure out where you are. Like once you get a lock on where those are.
Because I'm bad. Jump on it.
Because I'm bead. CGDAEB. And that at that F sharp at the bottom, usually I see that as G flat, but whatever. G flat, D flat, A flat, E flat, B flat, F, and C. Going around the circle of fifths that way. Going the other way, you've got the CF, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, B, E, A, D, G, C. And then once you get that locked in, then, if you're looking at how many sharps or flats something has, if it's in the key of A, you can see that you're jumping 3 steps away from the C, so it's got 3 sharps in it. If you're going to play in the key of A flat, that's 4 steps to the left of the C, so it's got 4 flats in it. So you can kind of tell a lot about stuff just from the circle of fifths or fourths itself.
See, I've always had a tough time. I've always had a tough time seeing things in music because, it's about hearing things in music. Much easier to hear something and understand it than to see something and understand it. That's why theory used to fuck me up as a kid, because my teachers were trying to show me the visual patterns, but I'm like, this is music. I'm supposed to hear the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Now, after all this time, I'm starting to actually see what I'm hearing.
This is pretty cool. They've got a metrics option, so you can actually, if you buy the hook pad itself, you can look at the metrics to compare your project in 5 categories to songs in the database. For chord complexity, melodic complexity, chord melodic tension.
This is almost like the song review thing that BandLab's doing, except at
on a technical level, yeah.
Like theory, arrangement, chord arrangement level. Okay, definitely going to check this out this weekend.
Yep.
Well, this is what I've been struggling with is like, where do I want to go? Is this the right direction? I know what I want to hear.
And that's where just having, again, the options, whether it's the chord magic or whichever of the different pieces, just get so many different options. You can look at the popular ones to see what the popular chord progressions are, the chord magic, the tone sets, like we said, to see pretty few different sounds.
So is HookPad a social network? Are they like BandLab?
I don't know, actually. As far as I know, it's just this app here. Like when you get to the HookPad itself, it's just this part of it. So this part of the website. It does have the
I would imagine
there's
a community behind this.
I would think so, yeah, but I'm not sure how active it is in terms of like whether it's mainly community driven or whether it's mainly theory driven with a community supporting it. I'm not really sure. But just looking at what we see here, we are seeing that most of this is all focused on just the actual writing of the music, the actual guides and all of that, getting the notes in where they need to and all of that good stuff.
I can't believe they crammed that into a browser app.
Yep.
Very impressive.
Exactly. For me, the most impressive part is just being able to change the templates and change the entire style of the song. It changes all the instrumentation and everything else, but it keeps everything that you've put together for the melody and for the structure of the song intact. And it just changes, it's just, like bring in a bossa nova group. Boom, there you go. Okay, bring in an orchestra, boom. Bring in a hip hop band, boom. You can just immediately, completely change the character of the song in just one click.
Yeah, those template changes really were very different.
And they were quite quick too.
And like
it is browser based, but you saw like when I click on Pop Ballad, you'll see a little load. It tries to load them up, and it'll take a few seconds. But like you'll see that it comes up pretty quickly to go from one to the next. And I guess some of the ones I'd already loaded before.
Yeah.
But you see a progress indicator at the bottom there, just bringing it up. Just a matter of seconds.
Essentially, it's loading MIDI samples, MIDI instruments during that time,
and making sure that it understands to play this. still say though that regular
Oh,
version.
you can also change the octave, so you could actually change the octave right there.
Yep.
On the fly.
Yep.
Bring that up an octave.
One whole octave, just the bass, right?
Wow, that is really cool.
Now, for some of them also, again, if you get different options on the right here, like it's showing chord properties right now because we have a D minor chord highlighted, but if we highlight an individual note, then when we look at the side there, would usually be related to the note as opposed to related to the chords. So it talks about the active voices and what the lyrics are there, and there's that smart octave right there.
Oh, wow.
So the smart octave, it'll play it in the octave that minimizes the distance from the previous note, or you can turn it off and it'll stay, new notes will put them in the same octave as the previous note.
I love it. I find myself doing that sometimes. Awesome that they've thought of that as they're building the software, and the usefulness of having a button that you can just say, do this right now.
Yep, and down at the bottom having the slider to override it and say, okay, well, you did a good job of putting it smart octave where I wanted it, but now change this one and bring it up. Also, what I noticed is that there's actually three separate bass things here. So we could have been moving or four separate bass things, so I'm not sure which one we changed for bringing the octave up, but we could bring
depending on the part. When I am converting things and trying to give them like an orchestral version, depending on the part, there's certain parts where I like that smart octave approach because I would rather play the brass version of this line, an octave higher.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Like bass lines, I tend to push my bass lines up an octave no matter what, because some of my samplers were sampled an octave off. Yeah. Won't even play on those samplers.
Yep. It shows you the legitimate range of the instrument, and it's just not where you're expecting it. It's either too low or too high. For this one, this is back to that reggae style, and we'll see if this only has one bass. We'll see what it sounds like originally, and then I'll try to bring the octave up. So that's with the regular bass, and then if I say thumb bass reggae and go up an octave.
Try bringing the lead down. Bring the lead down 2 octaves and turn it into a bass.
An octave higher on the bass. We'll bring that back down, and you say bring the lead down an octave. We can do that.
Yeah, that's the funny thing with reggae. Like you could be doing your lead in baritone.
Not bad.
And that's how you'd write something for a Rastafarian Nintendo game.
I like it.
Yeah, it's like Super Mario Brothers just like kind of strolling along. Ooh, a mushroom.
Yep, exactly. This must be magic. Yeah. The sections and the guides. All right, let's see what we got here. You can also turn on chromatic so that you actually have all 12.
Oh.
That way you'll get the, that's where you also see those color striping. So you see,
wow.
Between the red and the orange, you've got the red and orange stripe. Between the green and blue, you've got the green and blue stripe.
They put some serious thought into this.
Yep. They also show you the
I mean, that,
right there.
That's not something you would necessarily want to turn on a lot, but when you do, wow, that's so useful.
Yep, gives you all the flexibility. Of course, the guide section will show you that everything's good because everything's chromatic there. But if you turn the guides back on again, now we have the chromatic notes are all available, so we can add any of them in there. But you see which ones are or are not useful in those different keys. Very cool. I think we'll get a lot of use out of HookPad as well.
Yep, that one's going to go through a trial run this weekend after I rip everything apart, set it back up, checking this out.
Excellent. It's a good plan. Let's do one more video. I think we're going to probably close out pretty soon here, but maybe we'll do one more video before we go. Which do you think? You want to do Tim, Paul, or Jake?
Oh, I need a wheel.
Spin the wheel.
Jake.
Jake it is. So we'll go to... He originally had the Gent with Lydian Dominant. Let's see what we go to next here. That was the one you were talking about, the pitch perfect acapella when you're bad at singing.
Yeah.
That was the pitch correction one that he was talking about there. That was a good one.
Especially when you're talking acapella, or barbershop. Some of those tools can be really useful in those scenarios.
Absolutely.
But you wouldn't want to have like an acapella singer with a vocator doing that while the others are, singing clean. You'd want to fix one note.
Mm-hmm. And then work it in from there. Actually, let's do this one. The Andalusian cadence. This is making music in 5 styles using one specific chord cadence here.
Almost every guitar player trying to learn lead guitar is doing it the hard way. I know this may sound controversial.
Who dreams to be a composer. For the musician who wanted to write songs but didn't think they could do it. For the child who dreams to be a composer but doesn't know where to begin. For the student who created their very first chord progression but it just sounds really bad. I am that musician. I am that child. I am that student. I am the Andalusian cadence.
A real common mistake that I see beginning composers make is that they avoid using common chord progressions. They're afraid of sounding unoriginal or generic. But a common chord progression is like a very old recipe. If you want to become a good cook, you should probably follow the recipe first. And then, as you improve your cooking skills, you can add your own little spin on things, you can improve that recipe. Today, I'm going to be cooking with a very old-fashioned recipe known as the Andalusian cadence, and I'm going to be cooking it up 5 different ways. Now, this chord progression itself has a very rich history, and there's a lot to talk about it. And I'm not going to discuss those things in this video. This video is going to be a demonstration of how to make music, different kinds of music, with something like a stock chord progression. But I do want you to know more about this chord progression. So I'm going to direct you to 2 excellent resources regarding the same topic. The first is a video by composer David Bruce. It's titled The Mystery at the Heart of Flamenco. It's a wonderful exploration into the theory and origins of these chords. And of course, I have to send you to 12 Tones.
Ooh, flamenco, huh?
Of chords. Both of those links are in the description, and I do suggest you watch them because we're not going to be discussing much music theory in this video. But this is Signals Music Studio, so I do have to talk a little music theory. The Andalusian cadence is a sequence of these 4 chords. And I do explain where these 4 chords come from in my video on writing chords in minor keys. But here's the really easy way to look at it. Start on any minor chord, like E minor, and then jump back a whole step and play a major chord. Now jump back another whole step and play a major chord. Now jump back a half step and play a major chord. So I started on E minor, I went a whole step back to D, I went a whole step back to C, and a half step back to B. So I only have 1 minor chord, and then all major chords. And you can already hear the spice, the flair, the flavor of those 4 chords. These first 3 chords all come from the E minor scale. If I look at the notes in each of these chords, I'll see, oh yeah, those all come from the E minor scale. But this last chord, B major, well, that has a note that's not allowed in the E minor scale. Specifically, you see it's playing the note D sharp. So I can play the E minor scale over these 3 chords and it'll sound just fine. Take a listen. Here's the E minor scale over an E minor chord. And over a D major chord. And over a C major chord. But now listen over the B major chord. Hopefully here that doesn't sound too good, because right now I'm playing the E minor scale, which contains a D natural note. And we just saw that the B chord contains a D sharp. So I don't want to be playing lots of D naturals over this chord. Instead, what I want to be playing is a lot of D sharps. So if I keep all of the notes of E minor the same, but I take every D and sharp it, I'm left with this scale, which is E harmonic minor. and E harmonic minor is the scale that I will be using over just that chord. So that's about the simplest way I can describe this chord progression. But like I said, I don't want to do too much theory in this video. I'd like to talk more about songwriting, composition, and what we can do with these chords. The first way I'd like to compose with this chord progression, well, you already heard it. It was that thing we heard in the intro. That was basically just an Andalusian cadence. I just made a few slight adjustments to it. And I actually did an entire 20-minute video on exactly how I composed that, starting from the very, very basics and working my way all the way up to that composition. But that's posted just for my Patreon supporters. You can sign up there for any dollar amount to have access to that video. I've also made this one-page guide detailing the important aspects of this chord progression.
And there is value.
But I personally think what this chord progression is born for and born from is a more Latin-style groove. We'll be in the key of D minor this time, which means my chord progression will go from D minor to C major to B flat major to A major. Now I could keep these chords just like they are, but I'd like to make a few improvements to them. Specifically, what I'd like to do is use some suspended chords where I can. For example, here on D minor, I can get away with playing D sus4 and it doesn't leave my key of D minor. Here C major, I'm allowed to play C sus4. Here B flat, I'm allowed to add in the sharp 11. And then for A, I'm just going to play an A7 instead. So my entire chord progression, as I recorded on a Spanish classical guitar, sounds like this. From there, what I did is added in some percussion loops.
Oh, you hear the pop of that nylon?
Next, I programmed in a bass line using just the roots and fifths of each one of these chords.
It totally changes the flavor.
Lastly, I programmed in a reggaeton-style drum beat. And that gave me this wonderfully spicy little Latin jam, which was just begging for some leads on top.
Again, everybody wants spice these days. Oh, that's a nice lead.
Let's try out something completely different by using the same chord progression, but to do more of a film score, cinematic movie trailer kind of song. Let's move over to everybody's favorite key, A minor, and we'll have these
I was just gonna say, that could be turned into a march.
And E major, but we'll just make it an E7. Very common to make that 5 chord a 7th chord instead. Now, instead of playing these entire chords, let's just play one note from each chord. All right, so for my A minor chord, I'll just play A. For G major, I'll just play the B. For F major, I'll play C. And for E7, I'll just play the D. So I've picked one note of each chord, and it gives me this simple ascending pattern of A, B, C, D. Now let's play that with whole notes on a brass section. Now, let's introduce some strings, but the strings will just play the bass note of each chord. So the strings will just be moving down the notes A, G, F, and E. So they'll be moving down while the horns move up. And even though we don't have any full chords here, we're only hearing 2 notes at a time, the chord progression's so strong that you're still going to hear the implied chord progression. You're still going to hear the full Andalusian cadence, even though we're only playing dyads here, 2-note chords. Now, I do like the way this sounds, but it's certainly missing any sort of rhythmic activity. So I decided to add
nice descending.
Tribal-style cinematic drums and also some marching snare.
Now we got a march.
And that's cinematic or video game music right now.
And at the same time that that comes in, we have some staccato cellos playing the exact same notes that our string line is playing, just down the bass notes of the Andalusian cadence. And then I added one more staccato string part, much higher, and once again it only plays one note of each chord. And this specific line gave me a very Zelda-like feel. but it's missing something in the spotlight. There's no focal point, there's no centerpiece, there's no big melody. Now, I really didn't know what to do here, so I decided to use my phone a friend and call in one of the heavyweights, David Bruce himself. Not only did he put together an epic melody for all of us here,
some monks.
Video describing how he went through the entire process, and you're going to be able to find that entire video on his channel, which I'm linking right here. So here's just a little example of how he decided to approach this challenge of writing a melody for this simple chord progression.
Hi Jake, really great to be here and thanks for having me. So if you're trying to build a melody on top of an existing chord pattern like this, you've really already got a lot of the hard work of composing out of the way. You know this harmonic structure is there, and you just have to find ways to fit a melody line over the top of it. So the obvious starting place is to take the chords themselves and use notes from them, moving between them from one chord to the next, maybe adding some scale figures. It's also important, I think, to try and not make it too obvious. So if you just have a sequence that uses the same shape on each chord, just moving downwards, it might get a bit boring. So try and find ways to sort of shake things up a bit, maybe do a pattern that goes over two different chords or that runs into the next one slightly. I had a lot of fun doing this little solo and I hope you enjoy it.
See, I told you violins.
So once again, thank you so much to David Bruce for making an appearance here in this video.
A little shake there at the end too.
If you did appreciate that, please go check out his channel and subscribe. It is literally one of my favorite resources on the entire internet. I love his productions and his videos, and I learn so much from each one of his videos. So let's move on. Another drastic change of direction.
He's becoming one of my favorite resources.
What I'm aiming here for is like video
Jake
game.
is awesome.
You want me to think like you're playing Doom, old school PC game, DOS-based Doom, or Mega Man, one of those kind of games. I actually wanted to write something that would translate well over to the synth chips that would be used for an NES or a similar style system. So to begin, we won't even change keys here. We'll just still use the key of A minor, which is A minor, G major, F, and E. But for metal, we don't need entire chords. We can get by with just power chords. You should know that because you watched my video on power chords and you understand how versatile they actually are. So instead of A minor, I'm just going to play an A power chord. I'll play a G power chord, an F power chord, and an E. And you can hear just those power chords on their own give you the feel of the Andalusian cadence, even though we don't have the full chords there. And instead of just playing these 4 chords on a loop like we've done this entire video, let's just change our harmonic rhythm. That's changing when we change chords. For example, let's stay on our A power chord for 2 measures. And then we do our G power chord just for 1 measure, our F power chord for 1 measure, our E power chord for 2 measures, back to our A power chord, and then back to our E power chord. So I know that we've broken the rules here a little bit. We have our Andalusian cadence, and then I decided to just go back from A to E, because it sounds good. A to E will always sound good. So I can just kind of tack that on the end of my Andalusian cadence, and I'm still going to be cooking with the
it will always sound good.
Modifications to it. So I'll take these power chords, and instead of just, hitting them once, I'm actually just going to palm mute them. And I'm also going to syncopate the chord changes. I'll be switching these chords early. And of course, you know all about syncopation because you signed up and took my Name Your Own Price rhythm course, which really explains everything you could possibly want to know about rhythm. So we've just syncopated these chord changes, and I've also added in a few little gallops here and there. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 2, and 3, and 4, and. And for this very last power chord, this very last E, what I decided to do is instead of playing a power chord, let's do a scale run. It's pretty common in metal to just play scales. You don't play chords, you don't play power chords, you just play something in a scale or just play a bunch of notes. So let's do that. And the scale that I've picked...
It practically is metal.
Scale. Because we're on that chord. Hopefully you remember that this is where the harmonic minor scale comes in. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of play around with the harmonic minor scale. The lick that I wrote goes like this. And it ends on that leading tone of G sharp. So for my last chord, I'm not playing a chord. I'm just doing just a little bit of riff. So the whole riff all together with some bass added in and with some drums sounds like this. Now it's time to write a melody for that. And here's the technique that I decided to employ is pedal point. Let's say we're just going up and down 4 notes of the A minor scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now what if after every one of those notes I decided to play some specific note? Like let's say after the notes, every other note I decided to play this note. This is a low E. So I'm going to return to low E after everything I just played. So watch, here's 1, and then E, and then 2, E, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's the same thing as 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, but it's more interesting because we have that pedal tone there. We are using pedal point and we're constantly returning to this note E. And E is a note that's in my A minor chord. So that's why I've chosen that note as my pedal note. So keeping this technique in mind, just by going up and down the scale and pedaling on a chord tone, I was able to come up with this melody on top. Now after that, I decided to harmonize with it using the exact same rules that I taught in my last video on writing harmonies. Now in that example, you might be able to hear there's just a little passage of harmonized fourths to help, break up the monotony of just those pure harmonized thirds. But let's take a listen to what this all sounds like when we put it all together. Now there at the end, during our bonus solo, did you notice that the E minor chord made an appearance? So remember, we are in the key of A minor, and the 5 chord in the key of A minor really is an E minor. That's the natural diatonic 5 chord. What we've been doing here the whole time is making it major, because it has that inflammatory, rebellious flavor to it, right? But there's nothing wrong with the minor 5 chord. Actually, that's the one that we're supposed to be playing if we wanted to stay in the key. So here, I thought it would be nice to introduce a little bit of that soft E minor, because we're so used to hearing E major, it might be like a nice, comfortable, softer change, and I really enjoy its appearance right there. But it's kind of cool, you can see right in this short period of time, we've got an E major chord and an E minor chord, 2 different qualities of chord off of E, and they both sound fine in the key of A minor. Now let's wrap things up with something a little experimental. What I'd like to do is create something weird, something trancy, something psychedelic, something a little disorienting. And I thought what would help here
right up
is
my
a
alley.
pedal tone on the bass. So changing with each chord, let's have the bass note stay the same.
Oh,
So
the
here's A minor,
drone approach.
on the bass. Here's G
We had a
major.
talk about this the other night.
Here's F major,
slash chords.
and A is still on the bass. Right here, how nice that sounds, how slidey and kind of tethered, right? It kind of keeps you a little bit more in the zone because you don't have these big blocky changes. But I did decide to finally
The
introduce
A never leaves.
change over the E major chord. I thought it would help to kind of pull us back to A. So what I did is record that progression, but I set my DAW to be in 6/4 time instead of being in 4/4. I think 6 is fun because it provides a lot of different opportunities here for us. Then I decided to write a little synth line that doesn't make a lot of rhythmic sense. All I know is that it takes up 2 measures of 6. And it's weird. It doesn't really fit in on the beats, and that's what I wanted. I didn't do much composing here. It was more of just kind of clicking around and finding something that I kind of liked. And after that, I tried programming in some drums, but I really didn't like the way they sounded. And fortunately for me, Beard Stank is back. So I sent this track to him and got some deep drum grooves on top.
Beard Stank? Is he related to Mad Cracker?
He must be, right?
Ooh, that's good drums for that, though.
After that, it was a matter of adding a lot of synth layers. So backing up these pedaled chords that we created to kind of get a trancier vibe. Now, to introduce this entire groove, I thought it would be fun to use some vocal samples, the sound of a human speaking. So to find some source material for that, I just went on YouTube and searched for the psychedelic patron saint himself, Terence McKenna. I immediately found an interesting sounding clip of him speaking.
And the mushroom said,
and decided to just chop that up, put some effects on it, and throw it on in the beginning of this song. So if we put it all together, here is what it sounds like.
and the mushroom said, for one human being to expect to obtain enlightenment from another is like a grain of sand on the beach, expecting to attain enlightenment from another grain of sand on the beach. Don't you get it? You're all grains of sand.
Wow, that turned out fantastic.
It's not about the chord progression you wrote. It's about what
he is so creative.
Wrote. I hate to break it to you, but you're probably not going to write a new chord progression. Like, they've all been done before. There's only 12 notes. You know what I mean?
Nobody is.
It's pretty hard to draw something new when you're only talking about a full...
Find a new way to approach that chord progression.
Completely original. And you can do anything you want with it, you know, within reason. But you're going to have to be creative. You're going to have to, you know, try out different things. You're going to have to leave your comfort.
Everybody feels out in their own way.
Musical techniques from different regions or from different types of music theories. It's just, you know, if all you know how to do is play an A minor chord and a G and an F and an E like that on your guitar, and if all you know is one strumming pattern, then yeah, then you're going to be writing generic music because your box of compositional skills is very small. But once you have a chord progression, if you know lots of rhythm patterns, if you know lots of inversions, if you know lots of voicings, if you know lots of arpeggio patterns, all these different little music theory tricks allow you to take a very simple chord progression and expand it into something that I would consider musical. And I hope you consider every one of these examples as musical. They might not be the best compositions you've ever heard, but they are still compositions that I'm proud to have written. And if you had shown me these, you know, 15 years ago and said, hey, you know, this is something you wrote, I wouldn't believe you. These are compositions that I would have believed are beyond me. And they're very simple. They all exist within this 4-chord box. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something from it, and I hope you were inspired by it to just not throw away some old progression you were sitting on, to maybe just play with it and see what happens. So if you like this video and you'd like to support this channel, please consider signing up for my music theory and songwriting course. It's a professional course that walks you through everything you need to know about modern day music theory. I also have a name your own price rhythm course, as I did mention. That's also available on my site, but you could also sign up to my Patreon. I've left a link in the description for that as well. But if you don't want to...
This other video here, writing music off a bass line in 5 styles, is also a very good one. That was one that I checked out previously. Of course, it has to do with bass, so of course I checked it out.
I really like his mentality about music in general. I think that's why I enjoy him so much. And, you know, it's so true that, like, when you look at, like, say, different guitarists or different singers, it's not the guitars they're playing or the equipment they're using. What makes them different is their approach to their instrument and how they communicate with it, and no two are exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's how you approach your instrument that is going to make you unique or original. Because the chord progressions, like, don't say you wrote a song just by putting 4 chords together, because there are 1,000 songs out there with that progression.
You can say I've got an idea for a song. An idea for a song that uses these 4 chords and goes kind of like this. Like, you start putting together the structure like that. But yes, then it could become a million different things, all based on the rhythm structure and the timing.
Well, how you approach it is what when you write a song.
Mm-hmm.
The chord progression isn't the songwriting. That's arranging. How you play those chords, how you attack them, is the songwriting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's forever changing, because nobody is exactly like anybody else. You can play like somebody else, but you'll still throw a little bit of yourself in there, assuming you're a creative musician and you're not just trying to duplicate.
Yeah. So many good things on his site there. And again, that's Signals Music Studio, Jake Lizio. We also looked at some videos earlier by Paul Davids. And he's got his on Paul Davids for the YouTube channel. And Tim Pierce was Tim Pierce. Tim Pierce Guitar. And those were the 3 we looked at. And we also looked at Hook Theory, was another great one that has, we'll be looking more into that for sure.
They are some of the coolest on YouTube for especially guitar knowledge.
And there's so many others too. I don't want to leave people out, because some people will be like, oh, what about this guy? What about that guy? What about Rick Beato? And it's like, there's so many of them that, yes, you can absolutely find wonderful stuff from all these guys.
I was going to throw some Beato at you.
Oh, yeah.
Like, in the last couple weeks, I've seen a couple of his videos are like, this is such a good topic.
Mm-hmm.
He's got his finger on the music pulse.
Yep. Radiohead, The Benz versus OK Computer, Al Di Meola. Will rock music ever come
chances are everybody who's watching probably has run across him on YouTube. Mm-hmm. He is all over the place.
And I definitely enjoy his like greatest acoustic intros of all time and greatest guitar rock solos of all time, drum intros of all time. Like, he's a lot of those that can just get you a good starting point to just get into some really good music and start going into some stuff there. He's got great interviews with people, Sting, Pat Metheny.
I like how he analyzes the modern top 10 and like, why is this stuff? Because it's the same questions I ask. Like, why is this the music that's working in the commercial markets? Mm-hmm. And I'm sure a lot of the artists on BandLab wonder that, like, why is my song not the hit? Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's because the commercial market's not paying attention to the actually good music. So don't beat yourself up. Just hopefully the commercial market adjusts.
Top 10 drop D songs of all time. Top 20 rock bass sounds of all time. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of good stuff in here. A lot of good rabbit holes to jump down. And again, it's, it's not just Rick Beato. It's not just, Tim Pierce, Paul Davids, Jake Lizio. I mean, there's dozens and dozens of people. I mean, my whole YouTube subscriptions is pretty much all, whether it's music stuff or AI stuff or science stuff. That's basically all I have in the whole list.
YouTube is like a college.
Yeah.
Of different education.
And that's the whole thing, is it's, you learn what you're looking for. And that's the thing, is a lot of people, they only go on there for silly cat videos or whatever. I mean, they have, things that they look at, but the more you use it as a tool to actually study certain things, the more the recommendations come up, giving you more stuff, leading you down to more tools. So it's just, you get a whole lot of good stuff that way.
I mean,
I'm a fan.
The better you get at searching, whether you're searching Google or YouTube or any search engine, the better you get at searching, the more effective the finding becomes. And with YouTube, when you want to be a better guitarist, like when I'm ready to go learn that guitar, I already have like 5 or 6 people that I'm subscribed to thanks to you.
Mm-hmm. Now Davey's one of those who's got 11 million subscribers, and he's got zero strings bass solo.
He is really awesome. His comedic approach, like He just has a funny way of presenting everything, which makes it that much easier to pick up.
Yep. And sometimes he has face reveal or voice reveal and stuff like that. He does things on Fiverr. Sometimes he was doing, imitating whatever on Omegle, like just jumping in and with a mask on and playing for people. And they're like, oh my God, because he's playing incredible bass on Omegle for random people. He does some fun stuff like that. What I was trying to find is one of his ones that he did like funk bass lines. He did one where it was just a whole bunch of funk bass lines all together. Like a medley. That's what I was thinking about, like a funk bass medley.
And he is a really incredible bassist.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. These are all little 1 minute, 2 minute little videos here.
Do you know if was bass his first instrument, or is that one he picked up after the guitar?
I don't know.
Because he is a really good bassist.
He's a really good bassist, and he usually talks against the guitar, but I think that's more just part of the shtick, part of the, part of the story of, bass, forget guitar and everything else, or somebody holds up a guitar and he's like, oh, that's a weird looking bass you got there, that kind of thing.
Well, I could totally see a bassist acting like, I don't need to play guitar.
Yeah.
With certain music genres, like especially metal nowadays, I think with like, say, a good 5-string bass, I might be able to get away with everything I want to without needing a guitar.
He changed to violin. Goodbye, bass, my new favorite instrument.
Oh, violin's not an easy one to pick up, though.
I
know several guitarists who tried to go play violin because they thought, oh, it's like a guitar. No, not even close.
In our new Pixar film, Turning Red, I play May, a fiery teen.
This video you're about to watch is gonna be one of the most groundbreaking YouTube videos of all times. And after this amazing video idea I had, YouTube will change forever. So today, I'm gonna answer your questions. Nobody has ever done this before in the history, so welcome to a new episode of Zdayam. Some days ago, you asked me.
He does have a fun approach.
Slap like now for this original video idea and subscribe for more. Leave a comment now where you say amazing idea. You loved playing the violin. You were even smiling when playing it. I know.
With this, do you know which one the A string is?
It's like bass. This one.
Close enough.
Close enough. I smiled.
Damn, he's a tall motherfucker, huh?
I was just nervous for the gun. Such a bad move from two-set violin.
He's a Glenn.
After your lesson with two-set violin, did you play and practice violin more? Yes. Let me show you violin chant. I broke one string and I sent it to two-set violin to remind them their unforgivable mistake. And I just practiced 40 seconds in the past 10 days. 40 hours? Pfft, no need. Checkmate. Stop lying. We know you like the violin, don't you? Actually, there is something I like about the violin. OMG! What I like about the violin is that you can play all the pieces you want and you're not gonna get copyright claimed. And because all I care about is money, that's a very nice thing from the violin. Epico! Check this new epic technique I invented. I'm learning how to play.
Learning to play violin with Davey 504. Always fun.
He didn't do too bad there.
Even on a 3-string violin, he was playing handicap there. Or maybe that makes it a little easier.
Peter Gunn, if you're gonna learn one thing on a stringed instrument,
might as well be.
Or no, that's Mission Impossible.
That sounds like Mission Impossible. Yeah. Another good one to have. Now, I think we're pretty much going to wrap up for the day here. And I figured I'd take us out with the rest of the Davey video. So we'll just play a little bit more on the violin there. And then I'll just go ahead and jump us out from there. But we will catch everybody again next Thursday. We got plenty of stuff going every night in between now and then. But we will be back next Thursday with me and Tony. and we will catch you then, right, Tom?
Definitely.
Nice. We'll see what we can do with hook theory in the meantime and all that. But in the meantime, I'm just going to start this playing again, and I will break us on out of here as we go. Catch you guys later.
Hook
Slowly, and it means
theory, I'm
we're
setting
definitely
up this weekend.
We're definitely going to look into that. Yeah.
I will know to play it quickly. Then once I can play it quickly, I can play it even more quickly. Then after I played it more quickly, I can play it more quickly. 150,000 likes, and I'm gonna make a new violin playing video. But there is something I learned from playing the violin. I feel I have to say this. Violin is better than... I can do it. Violin is better than triangle. I had to say it. When will you make longer videos again? Are you dumb? I'm doing a long video now. Noob. What is your favorite metal bands? Every metal band where you can hear the bass is my favorite. So that means I don't have any favorite metal bands. I don't have money to afford bass. Can you send one bass to me? Here's my address. And he just publicly wrote his address. What a noob. Slap like now. 100,000 likes and I'm gonna reveal this guy address. Where can I get your merch? This amazing merch. Click the link in the description. And you know what's amazing about buying my merch is that half of the money is donated to my right pocket. And the remaining 50% of the money will be donated to my left pocket. Checkmate. Play bass on your roof. I don't have a roof. I'm homeless. Can Akinator guess you? Yes, it can. Can it guess bass? Let's try. Select the next game thematic object. Does it have a relation with sex? Usually not. Does it have a seat? No. Can we buy it? Yes. Buy more bass. Is it electric? Yes. Electric bass. Can we play with it? Yes. Do we use it to play video games? I did. Usually not. Does it have a relation with music? OMG. Is it a musical instrument? He knows. Is it full of sand? What? No. Is it used to fly? What? I just said it's a musical instrument and now he's asking this. Does it have more than 4 strings? No. Real basses only have 4 strings. A bass guitar. OMG! Akinator